The place card had my name and Sophia Euro S looping gold ink, but it was not on table with my parents and my aunts. It was tucked beside a stack of black plastic vendor meal bins. Aaron Wren, someone had leaned it against a silver chafing dish lid on the far side of the service hallway at the Alder House. Between a bus tub of rolled napkins and a clipboard marked staff meals. 16. The card was pretty, thick cream paper with a pressed edge. The same style Sophie had made me pick up from the calligrapher on my lunch break 3 weeks earlier. For a second, I thought it had fallen off a cart. Then I saw the seating chart. It was standing on an easel just inside the ballroom doors. White linen backing, gold frame, silk flowers wired around the corners. I had helped Sophie alphabetize it in her apartment while she drank canned Rosa copyright and complained that the Ma Euro S looked crowded. I stepped closer, careful not to bump the Florista Euro S bucket sitting on the floor. Wren, Diane, and Paul. Table 4, Wren, Sophie, and Grant. Head table, Wren, Aaron, vendor overflow. Vendor overflow was written in smaller type at the bottom, under photographer, DJ assistant, and second shooter. I touched the edge of the frame with 2 fingers, like the words might smudge if I pressed too hard. Behind me, my mother laughed. Why Euro, Warina? Euro S fine back there. Why Euro, Diane said. Why Euro, Honsley Shea S. Better in the kitchen anyway. Why Euro, paternity? She was standing near the coat room with one of Sophia Euro's bridesmaids. Kelsey, the one in the champagne satin dress who had already asked me twice where the extra boutonniere race were. My mother wore navy crepe pearls, and the expression she used when she wanted strangers to think we were close. Kelsey glanced toward me, then down at the vendor hallway. Diane lowered her voice, but not enough. Why Euro AS? He knows how these things run. Bakery work, you know. If she sits with family, people will keep asking why Shea Euro is running around. Why Euro? I was holding my clutch under my arm. Inside it were my lipstick, my car key, a folded tissue, and the printed timeline Sophie had texted me at 6:12 that morning with 3 red exclamation points next to cake table. Check. I had checked the cake table. I had also picked up my grandmother from the hotel, pinned my Federa Euro S boutonniere RE because his hands were shaking, found the missing flower girl basket in the bridal suite bathroom, and handed Sophie half a granola bar when she said she felt why Euro too hollow to smile. Why Euro? I had not been told I was sitting with staff. A waiter in a black vest came through the hallway carrying a tray of butter rosettes. He slowed when he saw me blocking the path. Why Euro? Sorry. Why Euro? I said, stepping against the wall. He gave me a quick professional smile. Why Euro? Jua, Euro, re-good. I was still in my sage green dress. The one Sophie approved after rejecting the first 2 because one was why Euro to Ephesia Euro and the other photographed. Why Euro? Yukand of beige. Why Euro? My shoes were already biting at the backs of my heels. I had a small flour burn on my wrist from the bakery ovens that morning, covered with concealer because my mother had told me visible work. Marks looked careless in pictures. Kelsey Euro S voice floated over again. Why is she helping with dessert service? Why Euro? My mother made a soft, pleased sound. Why Euro? Yef, we need her. The venue staff is stretched thin, and Aaron doesn't have Euro T mind. Why Euro? I did mind. I just had a long practice of minding quietly. The ballroom doors opened, and the first gust of reception noise rolled into the hall. Forks against plates, cousins greeting each other, a baby fussing, the DJ testing a microphone with a low why Euro a check. Check. Why Euro inside. Table 4 sat near the dance floor, already set with gold-rimmed chargers and little sprigs of rosemary tucked into each napkin. My Parenza Euro names were on the family table. My chair was gone, near the service station. A brown paper bag labeled vendor in black markers sat beside plastic forks and bottled water. There were turkey wraps inside, the same kind we bought for inventory days at the bakery when nobody had time to clock out. I looked back at my place card. Aaron Wren. The handwriting was Sophia S. I knew because the capital E had the same overdone loop she practiced on the envelopes after watching calligraphy videos. My phone buzzed in my clutch. Sophie, where are you? Mom says, you Euro remaking this weird, please just help for 5 minutes. A second text followed. Sophie. Also Donna Yurti talked to Granta S parents about money. MoMA. Euro S stressed. I read that one twice. Money. At 4:08 p.m., 4 months before the wedding, I had stood at the front desk of the Alder House with my debit card in my hand while Carla Baines, the venue manager, printed a deposit amendment on cream letterhead. Milo Hayes, the banquet captain, had handed me a pen that barely worked and joked that wedding pens were cursed. The receipt had shown $9,800, processed under Aaron Wren. Final four digits, 4,412. I still had the email. I still had the receipt. And apparently, nobody at table 4 thought I would bring that up while holding a handwritten card that put me next to the vendor meal bins. I should explain why I even had those documents in my phone at my sister Euro's wedding. In my family, weddings were not one day. They were a season of errands, envelopes, group texts, and women standing in kitchens saying, "Why Euro Yita Euro LL, only take a minute. Why Euro," while handing me a pen. My first practice run was my cousin Marla Euro's reception when I was 16. Diane, my mother, gave me a roll of ivory ribbon and told me to tie bows around 62 chairbacks at the VFW hall before the photographer arrived. I remember the exact smell of that place. Floor polish, coffee urns, and carnations kept overnight in the beer cooler. When I finished, my aunt said, "Why Euro Garen is so good at the background things. Why Euro," and everyone laughed like it was a compliment. By 19, I knew how to alphabetize escort cards, steam table runners, carry garment bags without wrinkling sleeves, and find the one uncle who had wandered to the bar during formal pictures. I also knew that if I asked where I should sit, someone would say, "Why Euro JOA? Euro LL figure you out. Why Euro," and then point me toward a half-empty chair near the DJ, the gifts, or the kids with sauce on their cuffs. Sophie learned that too, just from the other side. She was pretty in a way people organized around: blonde hair that held curls, wrists full of delicate bracelets, and a talent for looking confused whenever a job had to be done. I do not mean she was helpless. Sophie could build a registry in 40 minutes and negotiate a discount on bridesmaid robes like a corporate attorney. She just did not pick up boxers when I was nearby. When she got engaged to Grant in October, the family machine started before the ring photo had even been taken down from Instagram stories. Diane bought a white binder with gold corners from Office Depot. On the front, in her tall, neat writing, she wrote Sophie plus Grant, Alder House, June 14. The binder lived on our dining room table for months. Inside were plastic sleeves with contracts, vendor brochures, a sample dinner menu, and a guest list printed so many times the paper curled at the corners. Diane used colored tabs: pink for dress, blue for flowers, yellow for money. The yellow tab was the one nobody talked about in front of guests. At the bakery, I worked Tuesday through Saturday, opening at 5:30 a.m. with flour in the cuffs of my black pants and icing under my thumbnail. No matter how hard I scrubbed, assistant manager sounded better than it paid. My checking account had rent, gas, groceries, and the envelope I kept for emergencies. I was proud of that envelope. It was not large, but it was mine. Then, in February, Diane came by the bakery at 2:15 p.m. on a Thursday. I was boxing lemon bars for a school fundraiser when she stepped to the side of the counter and lowered her voice. "Why Euro Garen? I need you to be calm about something. Why Euro Garen?" That was Diana Euro's way of telling me she had already decided what the reasonable reaction should be. She had her phone in one hand and a folded estimate from the Alder House in the other. The deposit was due by 50 euro clock or Sophie would lose the June date. "Granta, Euro-est parents," she said, "we're moving money between accounts. My Federa, Euro-est bonus had been delayed. Diania, Euro-est credit card was why Euro you acting strange. Why Euro, which could have meant declined, locked, or simply too close to the limit for her comfort. Why Euro Yida, Euro-est temporary. Why Euro," she said. "Why Euro P12 weeks at most. You Euro reorganized. You Euro re. The only one who can help without making this dramatic. Why Euro." I remember wiping my hands on my apron and looking at the bakery clock. 2:19. The estimate had coffee stains near the bottom, and the line that said non-refundable deposit was underlined in blue. I asked, "Why Euro does Sophie know you?" Euro re-asking me. "Why Euro?" Diane paused just long enough. "Why Euro as he knows we Euro re-handling it as a family. Why Euro?" That should have been enough of an answer. I still said yes. If you have ever paid for peace because arguing would cost you more energy than the money, comment your local time. Hit like and subscribe if paying for peace has ever cost you more than the money. I want to know where you were when you recognized that feeling. That afternoon, I left work with my bakery visor still in my tote bag and drove to the Alder House. It sat at the edge of town behind iron gates and old maple trees. The kind of place Diane called timeless and I called expensive. Carla Baines met me in the reception office with reading glasses on a chain and a clipboard against her hip. "Why Euro Jua Euro re here for the Ren Latimer deposit?" "Why Euro?" she asked. "Why Euro Jais?" "Why Euro?" I said. Y euro Ufer Sophie Wren. Milo Hayes was at the next desk sorting linen counts. He looked up when my debit card wouldn't a euro T swipe the first time and said, Y euro ukip dera, euro s fussy. Try holding it in. I held the card there until the machine beeped. Carla printed the receipt on a narrow strip of paper, then stapled it to a deposit amendment that named me as payer and listed Sophie and Grant as the event clients. I signed on the line because Carla told me their accounting office needed a payer signature for refunds or adjustments. Y euro geek. The email copy. Y euro, she said. Y euro pit matters, if anything changes. Y euro. I almost made a joke about nothing changing in my family unless someone cried in a parking lot. Instead, I folded the receipt into my wallet and texted Diane, Y euro adon. Y euro. She replied 7 minutes later. Y euro jua, euro real lifesaver. Do not mention this to Sophie tonight. She is already stressed. Y euro. So I did what I always did. I became useful, and I confused that with being included. After that February Thursday, the wedding seemed to grow legs and walk into every corner of our house. Diane kept the binder on the dining room buffet between a glass bowl of potpourri and a silver-framed engagement photo of Sophie and Grant. Sophie wore a cream sweater in the photo, her hair loose over one shoulder, her left hand angled so the ring caught the light. Grant looked nice enough, a little stiff in a navy quarter zip like someone had told him where to stand. Every Sunday at 4 o'clock, my mother held what she called Y euro wedding office hours. Y euro, she made coffee in the blue French press, laid out pens, sticky flags, and vendor printouts, and spoke as if she were producing a small royal tour instead of a June wedding for 141 people. Y euro Sophie. Sit by the window. Y euro, she would say, moving a stack of envelopes out of the way. Y euro, the light is better there if I need to take a picture for the planning album. Y euro. I usually got the chair closest to the kitchen, the one with the loose spindle. That was practical because I was the one getting up. Y euro Garen. Can you grab the tasting notes? Y euro. Y euro Garen. You know buttercream. Is this too soft for June? Y euro. Y euro Garen. Write down that we need bakery boxers for the cookie favors. Y euro. My bakery work had started as my part-time high school job at Sweet Finch, but by then I was assistant manager. I opened at 5:30 most mornings, checked the proofing racks, counted register drawers, and called suppliers when our almond flour came in short. At home, Diane treated all of that like a cute habit that happened to be available for Sophia's wedding. Sophie treated it that way too. On March 3rd, she came into the bakery 10 minutes before closing with her maid of honor, Kelsey, both of them carrying iced coffees and wearing matching claw clips. I was scraping raspberry, filling off the stainless table when Sophie said, Y euro Udona, euro TB mad. Y euro. I looked at the clock. 6:51 p.m. Y euro, a thought sentence never ends well. Y euro, I said. She set a folded magazine page beside the sheet pan. It showed tiny square cakes with piped flowers on top. Y euro could you ask your boss if Shay euro D do these at cost? They euro D be so cute for the bridal luncheon. Y euro oat cost still means ingredients and labor. Y euro, I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Kelsey laughed like I had made a joke. Sophie did not. Y euro Moom said you can probably work something out. Y euro, Sophie said. Y euro jua euro re there all the time anyway. Y euro re there it was again. That tiny dismissal tucked inside a compliment. You euro re there, you euro re useful. Surely your time can bend around us. I told her I could ask because I hated the tight look Sophie got when plans did not land the way she imagined. Then I stayed 20 minutes late to price out butter, eggs, fondant, boxers, and ribbon on the office calculator. I sent Sophie a photo of the numbers at 7:34 p.m. She replied with one word. Y euro Pyx. Y euro the next Sunday. Diane printed the message and tucked it into the binder behind a pink tab labeled desserts. Like my estimate was an obstacle she had survived. At the same table, she circled a florist quote in red and said, Y euro J Granta euro S parents are being very generous, so we can put the money where guests will actually notice. I looked up from writing Y euro Pivory napkins, confirm count a euro on a yellow legal pad. Y euro you hut money. Y euro I asked. Diane did not look at me. She turned a page slowly, smoothing the plastic sleeve with her palm. Y euro the venue deposit. Y euro, she said. Y euro Yida, euro S cleaner. If people understand it as the Telesa euro contribution, weddings are about families coming together. Y euro, Sophie was scrolling on her phone, but her thumb paused. I waited for her to say, Aaron paid that. Or at least, Mom, don't a T phrase it that way. Instead, she said, why Euro J Granta, Euro S Mom, will love that. She keeps asking what she can tell her sisters. Why Euro? Diane gave a satisfied nod and wrote, why Euro Tally Family Gifta Euro on a note card with her neat black pen. I should have corrected it right then. The invoice copy was still in my email. The card receipt was in my wallet, folded behind my health insurance card. I could have said, why Euro? No. That was my debit card. Carla made me sign the amendment, why Euro? But the dining room smelled like coffee and lemon furniture polish, and Sophie was holding her phone out to show Diane a veiled picture. I told myself there would be a better moment, one without sticky flags and guest counts, and my Muthera Euro S pen already moving across the page. So I stayed in the kitchen chair and let the words settle into the binder. By April, the family table became another object Diane managed. She taped a draft seating chart to the pantry door with blue Pantera Euro S tape. Table 1 was written in capital letters at the top, with Sophie and Grant in the center and both sets of parents beside them. My name was not there. I found myself at table 9 between Aunt Marcy, who always asked if bakery work was why Euro temporary. Why Euro and a cousin from Ohio I had met twice. When I asked Diane about it, she adjusted the tape on the corner of the chart and said, why Euro Jua, Euro reflexible, Aaron. Sophie needs the photos balanced. Why Euro? Jophie was standing at the sink rinsing a mug. She glanced at the chart, then at me. Why Euro Yita Euro S? Just dinner. Why Euro? She said. Why Euro Juana T care once the music starts? Why Euro? I nodded because nodding was easier than making them explain why their balance always put me farther from the center. That was the thing about my family. By the time a decision showed up on a seating chart, there had usually been 3 earlier decisions that trained me to accept it. The first one happened on February 18th, a Tuesday, during my lunch break at Flower Finch Bakery. I remember the date because I had written why Euro Galderhouse deadline. 2 p.m. on a pink sticky note and stuck it to the espresso machine, where I would have to see it every time I steamed milk. Diane called at 12:07. I was in the back room with a plastic fork, eating cold sesame noodles out of a deli container while our morning prep sheet curled at the corners from the dishwasher steam. Her name flashed across my phone, and I almost let it go to voicemail because Tuesdays were inventory days and we were short on lemon curd. Why Euro Garen? Why Euro? She said when I answered, and her voice was already wet. Why Euro Gia Euro M? At the venue, and this woman says they are Euro re-releasing the date if the deposit isna Euro T posted today. Why Euro? I set my fork down on the lid. Why I thought Mr. and Mrs. Tally were handling that. Why Euro? Why Euro Uthi R? Why Euro? She said quickly. Why Euro Uthi? Just haven't a Euro T moved the money yet. Banks are ridiculous. Carla said a card payment would hold it, but your father is in a meeting and mine is maxed until the statement clears. Why Euro? There was a clatter behind her. Silverware maybe, and then the lower sound of someone speaking at a desk. Why Euro? Fow. Much. Why Euro? I asked, though I had already opened my banking app under the table. Why Euro Ufer 1800? Why Euro? She said. Why Euro Yida Euro S only temporary? Granta Euro S parents are mailing a check. I swear to you, Aaron, I would never ask if this wasna Euro T Sophia Euro S dream venue. Why Euro? The backdoor buzzer went off. 2 short rings for a flower delivery. My assistant manager badge was pinned crooked on my black polo. I remember pressing it flat with my thumb while I looked at my checking balance. Then at the small savings account I used for rent emergencies and a used Corolla fund. I had $5,216.44 in savings. Why Euro Moom? Why Euro? I said, lowering my voice because Marco was signing for the flower 10 feet away. I canna, Euro T, float almost $5,000 for long. Why Euro? I know that. Why Euro? She made a sound like she had turned away from people. Why Euro? Listen. Carla, Euro S printing some amendment. Ita Euro LL, show your card as the deposit payer. Then she can refund you when the tally check comes in. Ita Euro S paperwork, sweetheart. You Euro, re-good with paperwork. Why Euro? That line landed exactly where she aimed it. I was good with paperwork. I liked forms, receipts, labels on freezer shelves, wedding cake timelines clipped to stainless racks. Useful, felt safe to me. I told Marco I needed 15 minutes and took my purse into the alley behind the bakery. It smelled like yeast, rain, and the Thai Placia Euro S fryer oil. I balanced my phone against a milk crate and called the Alder house on speaker. Why Euro Carla Baines? Y euro, a woman answered. YHI. This is Aaron Wren. Diane Wren said, there are euro S. A deposit deadline for Sophie Wren and Grant Talley. There was keyboard tapping. Y euro Jize. The event is September 14th, 140 guests, estimated ballroom and East Lawn ceremony. We can hold the date with the $40-8-100- deposit today. Y euro. Y euro, you will my card be refunded when the groom euro S family sends payment. Y euro, I asked. Y euro pick can be. Y euro, Carla said. Y euro Gia euro LL. Need a signed deposit amendment from the client acknowledging you as the paying party and listing the refund condition. I don't euro T, want family misunderstandings later. Y euro? That was the first time I heard her voice sharpen around the edges. Professional, not rude. Diane came back on the line. Too fast. YOF. Course, IA, euro LL. Sign whatever you need. Y euro. Carla emailed the document at 12:31. I still remember the subject line because I read it 3 times before signing. Y euro Rentally deposit amendment. Third-party payment authorization. The PDF had the Alderhouse logo at the top, a gray drawing of the old stone building, and a box near the bottom that said Y euro cardholder, Aaron Wren. Y euro, I typed my name with my finger, then added my billing address. My hand shook enough that I mistyped the zip code once. At 12:39, Carla sent a secure payment link. I used my Blue Credit Union debit card, the one with a tiny chip crack near the corner. Approved. The receipt arrived at 12:42. Transaction ID AH21477D. Amount paid, $4,800. Card ending 6,619. Diane called again before I got back inside. Y euro Jew saved us, she said. Y euro please dona euro T mention it to Sophie today. Shay euro S already stressed about the guest list, and I dona T want money hanging over her. Y euro does she know I paid? Y euro S he knows you helped. Y euro Diane said. Then she softened her voice. Y euro Etheria euro S a difference. Let me manage the wording until the tallies send the check. Y euro I stood in the alley with my thumb on the receipt email, watching a drop of rain spread across my phone screen. Y euro poke Y euro, I said. When I returned to the bakery, Marco had stacked the flour bags himself and written Y euro Garen owes me 1 iced coffee euro on the clipboard. I laughed because I was supposed to laugh. Then I opened my wallet, slid the printed receipt behind my health insurance card after my shift, and told myself a refund condition was the same thing as a promise. By April, the refund condition had turned into a folder on my phone named Y euro Sophie Wedding. Y euro in the folder had more screenshots than photos. Diane called me on a Tuesday at 7:12 in the morning while I was labeling raspberry danishes at Flower Finch. I remembered the time because Marco pointed at the wall clock and mouthed, Y euro Pagan, Y euro Garen, you euro re already up, my mother said. Like my shift schedule was a family resource. Y euro the welcome bags need to go to the hotel by noon. Sophia euro as swamped with fittings. Y euro, I wiped glaze off my thumb with a paper towel and asked, Y euro which hotel? Y euro the Brookmere. Front desk has the list. ITA euro S only 62 bags. Y euro 62. Y euro Uthia euro re small. They were not small. When I got to my Parenza euro garage after work, there were 3 folding tables covered with craft paper gift bags. Tissue paper, mini pretzels, bottled water, aspirin packets, and printed weekend schedules tied with cream ribbon. Diane had left a yellow sticky note on one box. Aaron, please make these look neat. This can be your gift to Sophie. I stood there in my bakery shoes, reading the note beside a roll of ribbon and a pair of scissors with white handles. I had already sent $4,800 through a venue portal. I still picked up the scissors. At 10:48, I texted Sophie a picture of the finished bags lined against the garage wall. Me. Bags are done. Taking them to Brookmere now. Sophie, you euro re the best. Mom said you wanted to help with the cute practical stuff. Me. I didn't a euro T exactly say that. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Sophie, please don't a euro T make this weird. I have a hair trial in 20 minutes. So I loaded the bags into my hatchback in 2 trips, drove them to the Brookmere, and waited while a front desk clerk named Henry checked off the tally run block on a clipboard. He handed me a copy of the delivery receipt without being asked. Y euro Dodo, you want this? Y euro, he said. Y euro Jize. Y euro, I said, too quickly. The receipt went into the same folder as the deposit confirmation. In May, Sophie asked me to pick up the cake sample boxes from Marabola Euro's cake room because she and Nolan were Udoing registry things. Marabola Euro was 4 blocks from my apartment, so it would have been petty to refuse, or at least that was how I talked myself into going. The bakery had 3 white boxers waiting under the name Tally: lemon, elderflower, almond raspberry, and chocolate espresso. The woman at the counter slid over a receipt for $42. Whoa, why, I said. Why, I thought this was already paid. Why, as he called and said her sister would handle it. Why, the woman said, tapping the receipt with one pink nail. Why, Jua, Rieran. Why, I paid with my debit card and carried the boxers home on the passenger seat with the air conditioning aimed at them. Sophie came by 40 minutes late, wearing workout clothes and sunglasses pushed into her hair. Why, Jew saved me. Why, she said, opening the lemon box with my butter knife. Why, seriously. This is why you, Rye, my maid of honor in spirit. Why, in spirit. Why, I asked. She looked up, fork in hand. Why, do you know what I mean? The wedding party numbers were already set, and Nolan has all those cousins. Why, I was not in the wedding party. I knew that by then, officially. Diane had explained it in March while measuring ribbon at her dining table. Why, Pit keeps everything balanced. Why, Shay, D said. Why, Jua, LL have a special family seat. Why, Sophie took one bite of almond raspberry and said. Why, Tease one tastes expensive. Why, I folded the Marabola S receipt and put it under the magnet shaped like a strawberry on my fridge, because I did not want to file it in front of her. June was the dress. Diane called it Why, just steaming. Why, but the garment bag she brought to my apartment was nearly as tall as my door. She laid it across my bed like it belonged there, then handed me a portable steamer in its plastic case. Why, the bridal shop charges a fortune for touch-ups. Why, she said. Why, Jua, re so careful with fabric at the bakery. Why, W, wear aprons and cotton shirts at the bakery. Why, Jew, know what I mean? Why, I steamed the hem in sections, kneeling on a towel so the skirt would not pick up dust from my floor. Sophie stood near my dresser, scrolling through photos of table numbers. Why, Moom says the tallies are helping so much. Why, she said. Why, Nolana, Euro's parents are very generous. Why, the steamer hissed against a crease near the train. I paused long enough that a drop of water spotted the towel. Why, whelping with what? Why, I asked. Why, Thavenue? Mostly. The deposit, I think. Mom said it was handled. Why, I looked at the garment tag hanging from the zipper. Ivory satin, size 6. Rush alteration paid. Then I looked at my phone on the nightstand where the Why, Sosofi Wadinga folder sat behind a passcode. Why, did Mom tell you they paid it? Why, I asked. Sophie shrugged, still scrolling. Why, Garen? I don't know, T. No. Ita, S. All spreadsheets and parent stuff. Please don't know, T. Start an investigation while you, reholding steam near my dress. Why, I moved the steamer away from the satin and set it upright on the towel. Why, no investigation? Why, I said. But that night, after Diane picked up the dress and Sophie left with the cake leftovers, I opened the folder and renamed 3 files. Brookmere _delivery _receipt _April to 2. Maribel's _card _receipt _May 18. Alderhouse _deposit _AH21477D. It was the sort of thing I did at work. When a supplier shorted us almond flour or sent the wrong size cake boards, labeled the proof before anyone could call it a misunderstanding. The next Monday, June 10th, I was on the opening shift at Sweet Fern. At 5:42 a.m., I unlocked the back door, switched on the ovens, and wrote Why, Uleman bars to Tresa on the prep board before my phone buzzed against the stainless table. The subject line was from the Alder House. AH21477D deposit amendment. Payer update for Ren Tally event. I wiped flour off my thumb on my apron and opened it while the croissant dough rested in the SHEETER. Carla Baines had written in her short, tidy way, Aaron, attaching the updated deposit amendment requested by Diane Wren on Friday. This reflects payer name correction for the initial deposit on the Sophie Wren and Mark Tally reception. Please review for your records. Refund language remains unchanged. There were 2 attachments. One was a PDF called AH21477D_deposit amendment_0610.pdf. The other was the same refund email chain I had asked about in March. The one explaining that if the event canceled before July 1st, any eligible refund would return to the card ending in 4419. My card? I stood beside the cooling rack with my phone in my hand while the printer at the front counter coughed out the first online order tickets. For a second, I thought maybe it was just wording. Venues had forms had boxes. People used the wrong name all the time. Then I opened the PDF. On page 1, the original payer field still showed my name faintly in the revision history box at the bottom. Original deposit received, March 3rd, 2024, las 10:16 Ultim, payment method. Visa ending 4419, payer on receipt, Aaron Wren. Underneath that, in a darker line, it said, amended payer display name, Lawrence and Patricia Talley. Requested by Diane Wren. Reason for amendment, family contribution attribution for final event packet. There was a signature box at the bottom with Diania Euro S electronic initials, DW, dated June 7th at 3:28 p.m. I read Y Euro family contribution attribution Euro 3 times. It sounded polished enough to pass across a banquet office desk, which made it worse. My mother had not asked Carla to fix a typo. She had asked the venue to make my payment look like it came from Marca Euro's parents. Why Euro Garen, are we short on raspberry filling? Why Euro Nina called from the walk-in. I locked my phone and slid it into my back pocket. Why Euro no. Second shelf, blue lid. Why Euro? I worked for another 12 minutes because the bakery did not care about Diania. Euro S forms, I piped cream into G copyright Claire's, boxed a dozen scones for a real estate office, and told a regular that yes, the cinnamon rolls were still warm. My hands kept doing what they knew. At 6:17, when Nina took over the front register, I stepped into the dry storage room between sacks of bread flour and a stack of white cake drums. I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring, already moving, probably in her kitchen from the sound of cabinet doors. Why Euro Garen, EA Euro M, in the middle of emailing the florist. Is this quick? Why I got an amendment from the Alder House. Why Euro, I said. Why Euro Pitt says you changed the payer name on the deposit to Lawrence and Patricia Talley. Why Euro? There was a tiny pause, then paper rustling. Why Euro? Whoa. That? ETA Euro S, just for presentation. Why Euro presentation to who? Why Euro? Why Euro the venue packet? The family records? Idona Euro T. No. These places have too much paperwork. Why Euro? Why Euro Pitt says. The reason was family contribution attribution. Why Euro? Why Euro Jexactly? Why Euro, she said, as if I had helped her make the point. Why Euro Pitt looks cleaner if the major contributions are organized by household. Why Euro? I leaned against the metal shelving and a 5-pound bag of walnuts pressed into my shoulder. Why Euro Pitt was my card, my bank portal, my name on the receipt. Why Euro Garen? Nobody is denying you helped. Why Euro? Why Euro? A changing the payer name is denying it. Why Euro? She lowered her voice. Why Euro? Dodo, you want Sophie to have to explain to the Tallies that her little sister covered the deposit. Marca Euro's parents are traditional. They already feel sensitive because we Euro rehandling so many details. Why Euro? That was the first time she admitted the reason out loud. It was not a mistake. It was packaging. I asked, why Euro does Sophie know? Why Euro? Why Euro, as he knows. We Euro re-keeping things simple. Why Euro? Why Euro a thought wasna? Euro T, my question. Why Euro? Another cabinet shut. Why Euro Adona? Euro T start interrogating people before the wedding. Your sister is under enough pressure. Why Euro? I looked at the storage room clipboard where we tracked sugar inventory. My handwriting filled half the page, neat numbers in black pen. 50 pounds in, 32 pounds used, 18 remaining. At work, records were boring until someone tried to argue with them. Why I want the amendment reversed. Why Euro, I said. Why Euro Jew want me to call the venue and make a scene over a line on a form. Why Euro? Why I want my name left on my payment. Why Euro? Why Euro Jua? Euro re being precious about credit. Why Euro? I almost apologized. The word was already lining up behind my teeth from habit. Instead, I pulled the phone away, took a breath through the flour dust, and said, why Euro upperward me whatever you sent Carla? Why Euro? Why Euro? Absolutely not. Why euro thon Aya? Euro LL asked Carla for the request record. Why euro? Her voice changed, smaller and sharper. Why euro? Why are you collecting things? Why euro? Because I had learned that if I did not save the receipt, the story belonged to the loudest person in the room. I did not say that. I said, why euro pabecos? Ida euro s my money. Why euro? She exhaled hard. Why euro I have to go. Do not bother Sophie with this. Why euro? The call ended at 6:24. I stood there until Nina knocked once on the doorframe. Why euro, Jew okay? Why euro, you can. You cover 5 more minutes. Why euro, Geo, why euro? I emailed Carla from the storage room floor, sitting on an overturned bucket of fondant. I kept it plain. Hi Carla, I received the amendment. I did not request or approve a payer name change. Please keep the original receipt and all revision history attached to the event account. Also, please confirm whether payer display name affects refund destination for the March 3rd deposit. At 6:39, Carla replied, Hi Aaron, confirmed. Refund destination remains original card ending 4419 unless written authorization is received from the cardholder. Revision history will remain on file. IA Euro VE also noted your objection to the display name amendment. I screenshotted that email, saved the PDF, and renamed it Alderhouse_Diane_payer_change_June 10. Then I went back to the ovens before the lemon bars overbaked. The wedding was on Saturday, June 22nd, and it rained in that steady, annoying way that made every parking lot smell like wet asphalt and every dress bag feel heavier than it was. I left my apartment at 10:14 a.m. with Sophia Euro's steamer, 2 garment bags, a shoebox of pearl hairpins Diane had forgotten at our house, and the emergency folder tucked under my raincoat. The folder was a blue plastic expanding file from Office Max with a cracked snap. I had labeled the tabs in black marker the night before: timeline, vendors, receipts, ceremony, and Alderhouse. I told myself it was just practical. If someone needed the Florista Euro-S phone number or the cake cutting fee or the shuttle schedule, I would have it. That was what I was good at. The Alderhouse sat at the end of a curved drive lined with dripping sycamore trees. The front entrance had a white tented walkway already crowded with umbrellas, tuxedos, and bridesmaids holding their hems above the puddles. I saw Diane under the awning in her champagne dress, talking to a woman in a navy wrap while pointing at the glass doors like she owned them. I parked near the service side because the front loop was blocked by the Florista Euro-S van and a black SUV with Y Euro Tally Weddinga Euro written in white marker on the windshield. My wiper squeaked twice before I shut the car off. The back entrance was a plain gray door beside the loading dock, a rubber mat curled up at one corner. Someone had propped the door open with a metal bucket full of mop heads, and the hallway inside smelled like coffee, damp cardboard, and chafing fuel. I balanced the garment bags over my arm and bumped the door wider with my hip. Why Euro Kickaful? That puddly Euro-S deeper than it looks. Why Euro, someone called Milo Hayes, was standing by a rolling rack of linen bags, checking items off a clipboard with a capped pen. He wore a black dress shirt, black tie, and the kind of earpiece that made him look calmer than everyone else. He had been the banquet captain the day I paid the deposit, back when Carla walked me to the small office off the lobby and the card reader kept timing out. Why Euro PMLO? Why Euro? I said, pushing wet hair off my cheek. Why Euro G? Why Euro? He looked from the garment bags to the shoebox to the blue folder under my arm. His eyes stayed on the folder for half a second longer than normal. Why Euro Jew brought the book? Why Euro? He said. Why Euro Yida? Euro S, not a book. Ida Euro S, just the emergency folder. Why Euro? Why Euro Jur? Why Euro? He said, and his mouth twitched like he was trying not to smile. Why Euro the emergency folder with every answer in it? Why Euro? A server hurried past us carrying a bus tub of wrapped silverware. Behind him, I could hear plates being stacked somewhere in the kitchen. Quick ceramic clicks under the low hum of the vent hood. Milo reached for one of the garment bags. Why Euro Obradia Euro S room is upstairs. West Hall, Elevatora, S temperamental today. So take the staff stairs if you can manage it. Do you want me to radio someone? Why Euro? Why Euro Gia, Euro VE? Got it. Why Euro? I shifted the shoebox before he could take that too. Why Euro UDN said she needed these by 11. Why Euro? He glanced at the clipboard, then at me again. Why Euro Jua, Euro Re early. Family arrival was moved to 10:45. Why Euro? Why Euro? No one told me. Why Euro? His pen paused over the paper. YG, Mrs. Wren confirmed it yesterday with Carla. Why? I wiped rain off the folder with my sleeve, pretending that mattered. Y, Euro Polka, then IA Euro M accidentally on time. Y, Euro? Milo leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice so it would not carry down the hall. Y, Euro, Eucrala, Euro S here, by the way. Inner office until ceremony prep starts. Y, Euro Gia, Euro M, not looking for trouble today. Y, Euro Y, I didna. Euro T say you were. Y, Euro, he looked at the folder again. Y, Euro, just saying, Shay, Euro S here. Y, Euro? A woman in a chef coat came through the swinging kitchen door and said, Y, Euro Piamiolo, we Euro, remissing the vegetarian counts for table 12. Y, Euro, he answered without turning. Y, Euro won the BO. Page 3, bottom right, IA Euro LL. Bring it. That was Milo, all quiet systems and no extra drama. He took the top garment bag from me anyway, the one with Sophia Euro's reception dress inside, and nodded toward the stairwell. We walked past the prep area, where trays of salads sat under plastic wrap and a stack of vendor meal tickets was clipped to a metal rail. I noticed the tickets because one of them had Ren Tally printed across the top in block letters. And beneath that, a list of names in a column I could not read while moving at the stairs. Milo held the door with his shoulder. Y, Euro Garen. Y, Euro, he said. Quiet again. YIF, anyone asks you to hand that folder over. Dona Euro T. Give them copies or photos if you have to. Y, Euro. I looked down at the blue plastic file. The snap had come loose in the rain, and the corner of the Alder House tab showed. Y, Euro, why would anyone ask for it? He did not answer right away. From upstairs came the thin sound of Sophie laughing, high and bright, followed by Diane saying, Y, Euro, no, no. Put those bags in the corner. We need the chairs clear for photos. Milo adjusted the garment bag over his arm. Y, Euro Pebecca's weddings make people careless. Y, Euro, he said. Y, Euro wand paperwork makes careless people nervous. Y, Euro. I followed Milo up the back staircase to the bridal suite, balancing the emergency folder flat against my ribs so the zipper wouldn't Euro T catch on the garment bags. The suite smelled like hairspray, coffee, and the orange oil polish the Alder House used on every banister. Diane was standing by the long mirror with a clipboard tucked under one arm. She wore a champagne satin robe even though she was not getting her hair done, and she had already pinned a pearl comb into her twist. Sophie sat in the makeup chair, chin tilted, while a woman with a belt of brushes blended foundation along her jaw. Y, Euro other you are. Y, Euro, Diane said, as if I had wandered in late from a nap. I checked the clock on the mantle. 10:22. Y, I brought the steamer and the extra pins. Y, Euro, I said. Y, Euro, Pimulo carried the garment bags. Y, Euro. Sophie looked at Milo in the mirror and smiled the way she smiled at hotel staff. Y, Euro, a thank you so much. Y, Euro. Milo hung the ivory dress bag on the brass hook by the wardrobe. He did not mention my folder. He did not look at Diane. Then he said, Y, Euro Gia Euro LLB downstairs was set up. Y, Euro and left before anyone could give him another errand. Diania Euro S eyes moved to the blue folder under my arm. Y, Euro gig that to me. I need to check the program order. Y, Euro I have the printed copies in the front pocket. Y, Euro I said. Y, Euro Gia Euro LL, pull them. Y, Euro Y, I said, give me the folder, Aaron. Y, Euro. The makeup artist glanced at me through the mirror, then looked down at her palettes. Sophia Euro S maid of honor. Paige stopped steaming a sleeve for half a second. I unzipped the small pocket and removed the stack labeled programs. 5 copies clipped with a silver binder clip. Y, Euro hair. Y, Euro. Diane took them with 2 fingers. Y, Euro ooh fine. Just keep that out of photographs. Y, Euro. At 10:38 Diane sent me downstairs to Y, Euro WHM. Make sure the escort cards are in alphabetical order. Y, Euro, that was the kind of job she knew I would do without arguing. Names out of order bothered me, and she had used that weakness since I was 12. The reception room had been closed when I arrived, but now the double doors were propped open with 2 brass stanchions. The Alder House ballroom looked different in daylight before guests softened it. Ivory linens covered 20 round tables. Gold-rimmed chargers sat at each place setting. The centerpieces were low bowls of white roses and blue thistle, exactly the version Sophie had circled in the florist packet after saying the taller arrangements looked Y, Euro to fundraiser. Y, Euro. Near the dance floor, 4 tables had small framed signs. Wren family, Tally family, bridal party, parents and officiant. I walked there first, because I wanted to see it before anyone else had the chance to explain it to me. At the Wren family table, the seating chart was clipped to a small wooden board behind a row of folded napkins. Dad was seat 1, Diane was seat 2, Aunt Marla, Uncle Tim, Grandma Ruth, Sophia Euro's godmother. To tally cousins, Diane had called Y Euro a basically family. Y Euro and one empty place marked reserved. No Aaron Wren. I stood with my fingers on the back of the chair where my name should have been and read the list again more slowly, as if letters might rearrange if I gave them enough courtesy. They did not. On the escort card table by the entrance, guest Euro names were tucked into a painted wooden frame with pale blue ribbon. Tally, Thompson, Barga, Wren. I found Dad. I found Diane. I found Grandma Ruth. I found Sophia's college roommate who had once thrown up in our downstairs bathroom on Thanksgiving. I found my card behind the last row, leaning crooked against the frame. Aaron Wren, table 19. The ink was darker than the others, pressed harder into the cardstock. The loops in my last name were Diania Euro-S. I took the card and walked the room clockwise, counting under my breath. Table 16 was beside the bar. Table 17 was near the hallway to the restrooms. Table 18 was half-blocked by a pillar. Table 19 was not in the ballroom. A gap in the pipe and drape at the far back led to the service alcove where staff rolled carts in from the kitchen. Behind the black fabric were 2 rectangular tables pushed together. No centerpiece, no chargers, just water pitchers, paper napkins, and a stack of vendor meal tickets weighted down by a salt shaker. A handwritten sign on a folded tent card said, "Vendor Meals." My place card was already there too. Someone had made a second one. Aaron, it said, no last name, in thick black marker. A white apron lay folded on the chair beneath it. For a few seconds, I listened to the sound of forks being placed on tables in the ballroom, one clean click after another. I picked up the apron and turned it over. It was the Alderhouse stock, stamped AHB on the inside tag in laundry marker. Carla Baines came through the service door with a radio clipped to her waistband and a floor plan in her hand. She was in a navy suit, flat shoes, no nonsense in her posture. She stopped when she saw me holding the apron. "Y Euro Garen. Y Euro," she said carefully. "Y Euro pair. You looking for someone? Y Euro." I held up the escort card from the front table and then the marker card from the vendor setup. "Why, I think someone is looking for a version of me. Y Euro." Carla Euro's eyes moved from one card to the other. She did not smile. She flipped up the top page of her floor plan, found a stapled packet underneath, and ran her finger down a column. Y Euro Jew were not on the vendor count submitted Wednesday. Y Euro, she said. Y Euro Wand family seating was marked final. Y Euro a marked by who? Y Euro, Carla. Looked toward the ballroom doors where Diane was now standing with her clipboard, talking to the florist beside the Wren family table. Y Euro Jar mother sent the final seating revision at 9:11 last night. Y Euro Carla said. Y Euro Pemail an attachment. Y Euro P. I folded the apron once, then set it back on the chair. Diane looked over at us from across the room. Her face did not change, but her hand tightened around the clipboard. I looked from Diania Euro's clipboard to Carla Euro's tablet, waiting for one of them to say there had been a mistake. No one did. Milo came through the service alcove carrying a plastic bus tub full of folded black napkins. He slowed when he saw the apron on the chair. Y Euro Dodo, you need me to move that Y Euro? He asked Carla. Diane reached us before Carla could answer. Her perfume arrived first, the sharp gardenia one she wore to church on Christmas Eve. She kept her smile pinned toward the ballroom, where the photographer was arranging the groomsmen near the fireplace. Y Euro Garen. Y Euro, she said quietly. Y Euro Tethys. Is not the time. Y Euro, for what? Y Euro, I asked. Her eyes flicked to Carla. Y Euro for making seating dramatic. Y Euro. Carla held the tablet flat against her hip. YG Mrs. Wren IAM confirming a guest placement. Aaron has 2 cards. Y Euro. Diania Euro's smile thinned. Y Euro as he has 1 card. The handwritten one was to make things easier. Y Euro u for ho. Y Euro, I asked. A server pushed past with a tray of champagne flutes, and Diane stepped closer so she could keep her voice low. Y Euro Juno, half the staff already. You Euro LLB, perfectly fine back here for dinner, and then you can come out for toasts. Y Euro Ubak here is behind a curtain. Y Euro Yita Euro S. A service alcove, Aaron. Dona Euro TB childish. The word landed in the space between the dish racks and the pipe hand drape. I could smell the vendor meals warming in foil pans. Chicken with lemon sauce and green beans. On the chair beside the apron was a laminated sheet that said staff meals. 6:15 p.m., take one only. Milo set the bus tub down on a rolling cart. He didn't Euro tea look at Diane, but he stayed close enough to hear. Carla said, "If Erin is a guest, she cannot be assigned to the vendor meal table. It affects head count, service timing, and meal billing." "Why Euro?" Diane gave a tiny laugh. "Why Euro? You Carla, respectfully. She is family. We can handle our own family." From the ballroom, Sophia's voice floated over the clink of glass. "Why Euro Moom, is Erin having a seating crisis? Why?" She came toward us with her bouquet in one hand and the hem of her dress lifted in the other. Her hair was fixed with pearl pins, the exact ones I had driven 40 minutes to pick up after the first salon lost the order. She stopped at the edge of the alcove and looked at the marker-written card. "Why oh," Sophie said, and laughed once through her nose. "Why Euro, Garen? You Euro LL probably be more comfortable with the caterers anyway. You know kitchen people. Why Euro?" The photographer, a man in a gray vest, lowered his camera halfway. One of the bridesmaids looked at the floor. Maloa Euro's jaw moved like he was biting the inside of his cheek. I said, "I know kitchen people because I work in a bakery. Why Euro?" Sophie tilted her head, still smiling for the room behind her. "Why Euro exactly? I didn't a Euro tea mean it as an insult. You Euro always happier when you have something to do. Why Euro?" Diane reached for the apron and held it out like she was handing me a sweater. "Why Euro wand actually? Since you Euro here, dessert gets plated at 7:40. The cake table needs the petits fours placed around the base before photos. Just slip this on for 20 minutes so people don't a Euro tea bother you with questions. Why Euro?" I stared at the black apron in her hands. It had the Alderhouse stitched in gold over the pocket. Inside the pocket was a folded paper tasting menu and a pen with teeth marks on the cap. "Why Euro do you want me to wear a staff apron at my sister Euro's wedding?" "Why Euro?" I said. "Why Euro Wanley during plating?" "Why Euro?" Diane said. "Why Euro Udana, Euro tea, make it sound ugly." "Why Euro?" Sophie shifted her bouquet to her other hand. "Why Euro, Garen, please. We paid a lot for this reception to look seamless." "Why Euro?" I turned to her. "Why Euro W?" "Why Euro?" Her smile twitched, then came back. "Why Euro do you know what I mean? Why Euro?" I did know. I knew the language in our family. We meant Diane had decided. We paid meant Samonia Euro's name had been left out. Family helps meant I should not ask what it cost me. Carla Euro's tablet chimed softly. She glanced down, then tapped the screen. "YG Mrs. Wren. Before anyone puts on venue staff attire, I need to be clear. Erin is not an Alderhouse employee or a contractor. She is not covered to handle plated service." Why Euro Diania Euro's face warmed under her makeup. Why Euro Ofer Havina Euro's sake, Shea Euro's. Setting pastries on a table, Milo finally spoke. "Why Euro W have a pastry attendant for that? Ita Euro's on the banquet event order." Why Euro Diane turned toward him. "Why Idona? Euro T believe I was asking you." "Why Euro?" "Why Euro no?" "Why Euro?" Milo said, polite and steady. "Why Euro G but you asked for the apron." "Why Euro?" Oh, Carla looked at him, then back at Diane. "Why Euro Wandaye Euro M taking it back." "Why Euro?" She took the apron from Diania's hand and placed it on the cart with the napkins. The movement was small, almost boring. But Diania Euro's fingers stayed curved in the air for a second after the fabric was gone. Sophie looked toward the ballroom, where Kaliba Euro's parents were posing beside the mantel. "Why Euro you can we not do this in front of everyone? Why Euro I almost apologized." The words formed out of habit, ready to smooth the wrinkle I had not made. Then I saw my printed place card on Carla Euro's tablet screen, the clean one with Ren Aaron in navy script. Assigned to table 19. Below it was the seating file name. Renlo _final_final_ rev2.pdf.I. Pointed to it. Why Euro when was I moved from the family tables? Why Euro Carla tapped the file details. Why Euro the earlier chart from Wednesday had you at table 3. Why Euro a table 3 was beside the dance floor. Parents, siblings, grandparents. I had seen it on the first draft while I was helping Diane alphabetize escort cards at her kitchen island. Diane said, "Why Euro plans change?" Sophie gave a small shrug. Why Euro W needed table 3 balanced 4 photos. Why Euro for photos? Why Euro, I repeated. Diania Euro S clipboard pressed against her waist. Y Euro Garen, go freshen up. Dinner starts in 32 minutes. Y Euro. I looked past her into the ballroom, at the ivory linens, the gold chargers, the family table with one chair fewer than it used to have. Then I picked up the handwritten card with my name in thick black marker. Y Euro? No. Y Euro, I said. Y Euro, Gia Euro M. Going to keep this? Y Euro. Y Euro? No. Y Euro, Diane repeated it, like I had mispronounced a word. She still had the spare apron folded over her forearm. It was black, with the Alder House stitched in silver thread near the pocket, and there was a laminated name tag clipped to it that said STAFF in capital letters. She glanced toward the ballroom doors, then lowered her voice. Y Euro Garen. Dona Euro T start something in a hallway. Y Euro Gia Euro M. Not starting anything. Y Euro, I said. I slid the place card into the side pocket of my dress. Y Euro Gia Euro M keeping. What has my name on it? Y Euro. Sophie stood behind her with one hand on her veil comb, checking that it had not shifted. She looked annoyed in a tired, practical way, like I had delayed the cake cutting by asking for directions. Y Euro Moom, can we just fix this? Why, she said. For 1 second, I thought fix meant move me back to the family table. Diane turned the apron around so the neck loop faced me. Y Euro a thought is what IA Euro M trying to do. Erin can help for 20 minutes. Everyone will be seated, and then she can blend in after dessert. Y Euro. Y Euro O blend in. Where, Y Euro? I asked. Diane looked toward the service alcove instead of at me. Y Euro Oat, the table where you were placed. Y Euro. Carla Baines stepped closer, her clipboard pressed against her black jacket. She had that manager posture that made even soft words land flat. YG, Mrs. Wren. I need to be clear. A guest cannot put on our uniform and handle plated food. If there is an allergy issue, a spill, or a photograph of her serving, it becomes my Staffa Euro S problem. Y Euro. Diane gave her a tight smile. Y Euro as he works in a bakery. She knows food safety. Y Euro. Y Euro Gia Euro M. Not questioning her. Euro Carla said. Y Euro Gia Euro M. Telling you our policy. Y Euro Milo came through the double doors carrying a rack of water glasses. He slowed when he saw the apron in Diania Euro S hand. His eyes went to me, then to Carla. He did not say anything, which somehow made me feel less alone than if he had tried to rescue me loudly. From inside the ballroom, someone tapped a microphone twice. The GAS voice floated out, cheerful and fuzzy. Y Euro Gladys and gentlemen, salads are going down now, so please find your seats. Y Euro Diania, Euro S jaw tightened. Y Euro Juicy. This is exactly why I needed you to cooperate. Y Euro, I almost apologized. The shape of it rose automatically. Sorry for making this hard. Sorry for being visible. Sorry for not turning into whatever tool would solve the next problem. I pressed my fingers against the place card through the fabric of my pocket until the corner dug into my thumb. Y Euro you hut time is the father-daughter dance. Y Euro, I asked. Sophie blinked. Y Euro you hut. Y Euro the dance. When is Dad supposed to dance with you? Y Euro? Carla checked the banquet event order clipped to her board. Y Euro gate 15, after the dessert parade. The photographer requested the uplights lowered at 8:12. Y Euro, Diania, Euro S eyes narrowed. Y Euro, why does that matter? Y Euro, Pebek as you asked me to plate desserts before that. Y Euro, I said. Y Euro Jew wanted me in the kitchen during the part of the reception where people would notice the family table. Y Euro. Sophie gave a short laugh with no humor in it. Y Euro Garen. People are not studying the seating chart like a court exhibit. Y Euro? No. Y Euro, I said. Y Euro GA boot. Someone studied it enough to take me off table 3. Y Euro. That landed. Diania Euro S fingers flexed around the apron. Sophie looked at Carla too quickly. Carla turned one page on the clipboard. Y Euro the printed chart at the entrance matches the final PDF we received yesterday at 4:18 p.m. Y Euro Pwo sent it. Y Euro I asked. Carla hesitated, and then she looked at Diane. Y Europit came from the mother of the Bredia Euro S email. Y Euro, Diane said. I manage details. That is not a crime. Y Euro, no one said crime. Y Euro, Milo said quietly from beside the glass rack. Diane turned on him. Y Euro, excuse me, Y Euro. He set the rack on a side station and wiped one damp hand on his black vest. Why I said no one said crime. Why euro? Sophie stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. Why euro you please stop doing this right now. I a euro am asking you as your sister. Why euro? I looked at her dress first, the satin buttons down her back, the tiny emergency stitch near the waist where I had repaired a loose seam that morning with thread from my purse. Then I looked at her face. Why euro you let mom hand me an apron at your wedding? Why euro I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. The DJ called again from the ballroom. Why euro wedding party? Family, if you could settle in, we are keeping a beautiful schedule tonight. Why euro? Carla unclipped a smaller sheet from the back of her board. It was a table assignment printout, creased at the corner, with tiny check marks beside names. She held it at chest height, not offering it yet. Why euro Garen? Why euro, she said carefully. Why euro if you want. I can seat you at table 3 based on the Wednesday version in our archive. But I need to know now. Once first course is fully served, moving settings becomes messy. Why euro Diania, euro S smile vanished. Why euro Jew will do no such thing. The table is balanced. Why euro balanced? That was the word she chose for removing one chair. I looked through the open ballroom doors at table 3. Dad was laughing with Sophia Yudo's new in-laws, one hand around a water glass. There was no empty setting beside him. There was a floral arrangement where my plate had been. Why euro Gia euro M not taking someone else's euro S chair? Why euro I said. Diane exhaled like she had one. I turned to Carla. Why euro you show me the Wednesday version? Why euro? Carla nodded once. Why euro pin my office? Why euro? Diane stepped into my path. Why euro Garen? If you walk away from this reception right now, don't a euro T expect me to explain you kindly. Why euro? I touched the card in my pocket again. Why euro Jew already explained me. Why euro I said. Why euro pin marker? Why euro? Diania, euro S mouth tightened like she was holding a pin between her teeth. For 1 second, I thought you might grab my wrist. Right there beside the hallway with the framed watercolor of the Alderhouse garden. She didn't a euro T. Image mattered too much. Carla looked from Diane to me, then to Milo who had stayed 3 steps behind us with his black service clipboard tucked under his arm. Why gee Mrs. Wren? Why Carla said, calm enough that it made Diane look louder without Diane saying anything. Why euro G a euro M, not discussing family seating. I a euro M checking a document discrepancy that affects my event file. Why euro Diane gave a quick laugh. Why euro oat my doTERRA euro S wedding. Why euro I euro oat my clienta euro S event. Why euro Carla said. Why euro Jize. Why euro O. That was the first time anyone had used the word client around me that night without meaning Sophie. We went down the side hallway past the coat room, past a rolling rack loaded with gray linen bags and a stack of gold chargers. Music from the ballroom thumped through the wall, muffled bass and applause. Someone had started announcing the late-night coffee service. I could hear Sophia Yuris' bridesmaids laughing near the photo booth, completely unaware that the floor under the perfect reception was starting to show the seams. Carla Yuris' office was small, square, and too bright. There was a printer on a file cabinet, a corkboard with banquet orders clipped in rows, and a half-empty mug that said, keep calm and rebook. On the desk sat a blue folder labeled Ren Kaplan, DS Manos 14, Final. Diane stopped at the doorway. Why euro Tethys is ridiculous. Why euro? Carla opened the folder. Why euro? The ridiculous part is that your balanced email says one thing, the refund thread says another, and your husband just told my front desk that the Gruma Euros family covered the original deposit and should be listed as such for the gratuity dispute. I blinked. Why euro gratuity dispute? Milo shifted his clipboard to his other hand. YG Mr. Wren came to the service station 10 minutes ago asking why the final gratuity was calculated on the full contracted amount. He said since the Kaplan family gifted the deposit, it should not euro T count toward the Ren Sadia euro S total. Of course. The lie had been useful until money got involved again. Diane looked at Milo like he was a stain on a napkin. Why euro auth that was a private billing question. Why euro pit became my question when 2 people gave 2 different payer histories. Why euro Carla said, she pulled out a printed email chain first. I saw my own name in the sender line, Aaron Wren, and the date. May 6th, 9:42 a.m. My throat went dry, in a practical, annoying way. So I swallowed and focused on the paper. Carla placed it flat on the desk, then set another page beside it. Why euro fund request from June 2nd, declined because the deposit was non-refundable after menu confirmation. Y euro, Diane reached for the page. Carla slid it out of reach. Y euro Gia euro M. Going to keep the originals in my file. Y euro, she said. Y euro Jew can request copies tomorrow. Y euro, then came the invoice. It was 3 pages, stapled at the top left, with the Alderhouse logo printed in green. Carla turned to page 2 and ran her finger down the charges. Ballroom rental, plated dinner for 141, past AWHO, cake, cutting, uplighting, late night coffee. Near the bottom was the deposit section. I saw numbers before I saw names. $7,500. Paid 5/6, card ending 8841. My bakery debit card. The one I used for emergencies and inventory runs. The one I paid back from my own savings because I a euro D promised myself Sophia's wedding would be the one family thing I could help fix quietly. Diane folded her arms. Y euro a thought the sauna. Euro T, prove what you think it proves. Aaron offered to run a payment. Families do that. Y euro, Carla didna. Euro T, answer her. She opened a second folder, thinner, labeled amendment. Milo leaned toward me and said quietly, Y euro Theus is the one I witnessed. Y euro, I remembered him then in a sharper way than I had all night. May 6th, front desk, rain on the parking lot, my hair smelling like donut glaze because I had come straight from the bakery. Milo had handed me a black pen and said, Y euro Yinishal here too. So accounting doesn't euro T. Bounce it back. Carla lifted a signed page from the folder. Y euro thesis the deposit amendment that changed the payer record after the card receipt posted. Y euro Diania, euro S face changed, only a little. Her eyes went to the hallway, measuring distance to the ballroom, to Sophie, to anyone who might still be managed. Carla put the amendment beside the invoice, lining the corners neatly. And before she read the amended payer line out loud, I need you to do one thing for me. If you have ever watched someone rewrite your help into someone else euro's generosity, comment Y euro Invoice. Y euro keep watching. Because that piece of paper on Carla euro's desk was about to say what my family had spent months avoiding. Carla did not make a speech. She turned the amendment so it faced my parents, tapped one square of the paper with her index finger, and read in the same voice she had used earlier to ask about coffee service. Y euro U deposit payer amended May 6th at 4:42 p.m. to Aaron Wren. Amount received, $7,500. Card ending 8841. Initialed by client representative Diane Wren and witnessed by Milo Hayes. Y euro. Milo stood by the credenza with his hands folded in front of him. He did not look pleased or dramatic. He looked like a man who had already answered this question in his own head, and was tired of pretending the paper might say something else. My father euro's mouth moved once before any words came out. Y euro that was family money. Y euro. Carla slid the card receipt from under the invoice. It was printed on narrow thermal paper. The edges curled inward like a grocery receipt left in a car. Y euro. The receipt does not show source of funds beyond the card. Y euro, she said. Y euro pit shows payment method entered manually at the front office terminal. Visa ending 8841. Authorization code 611,932. Y euro. Y euro thought is arena. Euro S bakery card. Y euro, my mother said quickly. I almost corrected her out of habit, because it was not a bakery card. Then I realized she knew that she had seen me use my personal card at the grocery store enough times. She was trying to turn it into something messy and unverifiable. Y euro Yida euro S. My personal debit card. Y euro, I said. My voice was lower than I expected. Y euro from Harbor Community Credit Union. Y euro. Carla glanced at me, then back at the file. Y euro. The payer name on the receipt is Aaron M. Wren. The billing zip is 2,864. Y euro. My father rubbed his forehead. Y euro UDN. Why is your initial on that? Y euro. Mom pressed her lips together, then picked a safer part of the truth. Y euro Quebec, as Aaron wanted to contribute. We were all contributing. I signed whatever Carla put in front of me that day because we were trying to secure the date. Y euro. Carla opened the second stack. The email chain printed with gray headers and clipped with a black binder clip. I saw the subject line before she read it. Wren Kaplan Deposit Allocation and Program Credit. Y euro TIS is from June 2nd. Y euro. Carla said. YG Mrs. Wren to our events office. Quote, please keep Arena Euro's name off all printed acknowledgments. We are presenting the deposit as a gift from the Kaplan family to avoid awkward questions about budget. Do not mention this to Sophie. She will stress about optics. Y euro. The radiator clicked behind Carla Euro's desk. Somewhere beyond the wall, a microphone popped and a man laughed too loudly into it. The reception was still moving along without me, with chicken marsala plates and white napkins and Aunt Lisa probably wondering why my chair at the caterer table was empty. Sophia Euro's face changed first. She stopped looking angry and started looking alert, as if there was finally a practical problem she had to solve. Why euro Jew emailed that? Why euro? She asked Mom. Mom looked at Carla instead of Sophie. Why euro? I thought was an internal planning note. It wasn't a euro T meant to be read like an accusation. Why euro? YIT is part of the event file. Why euro? Carla said. Why euro? Jar husband requested an accounting review of all deposits, gratuity, and service charges at 8:17 tonight. That made the file relevant to his question. Why euro? Data euro S. Hand dropped from his face. Why? I asked about the gratuity, because Diane said the Kaplans already covered the deposit. Why euro? I stared at the email chain. Under MoMA, Euro's message was a reply from the venue coordinator, dated June 3rd at 9:06 a.m. Carla read that one too. Why euro W can omit personal acknowledgments from the program. Please note the internal invoice and payment record must remain accurate for accounting and refund purposes. Why euro? She turned to another page, this one with yellow highlighting. Why Eurothon on August 28th, Mrs. Wren requested refund language in the event of cancellation. Quote, if any portion of the deposit is refundable, issue it back to Diane Wren for simplicity, as Aaron will not need to be involved. Why euro a that was for convenience. Why euro? Mom said. I looked at her then. Why euro you convenient for who? Why euro? She finally looked back at me, and there was no softening in her face. Just calculation. The kind she used when the florist was 3 inches off on centerpiece height. Sophie whispered, why euro moom? Why euro? Carla laid the final page down. It was the signed deposit amendment. My signature sat on the lower left line, careful and too small. MoMA S initials were beside the client authorization box. Maloa S's name was printed under witness. Carla said, why euro? The refund request was denied by accounting because the payer of record was Aaron Wren. That denial was emailed September 1st to Diane Wren. Why euro? Dad turned toward Mom fully. Why euro? Jew told me the Kaplans insisted on no mention in the program. Why euro? MoMA euro S fingers tightened around her little satin purse. Why euro? Dodo, you want to discuss family embarrassment in front of venue staff. Why euro? Milo answered before I could. Why G? Mrs. Wren, you asked your daughter to put on a spare apron 20 minutes ago. Why? No one had a clean sentence after that. Sophie looked from Milo to Carla, then to the folder on the podium as if the paper itself had behaved badly. Why euro? Athada, euro S. Not fair. Why euro? She said. Her veil had been pinned low, and one of the pearl combs was slipping behind her left ear. Why euro? Garen likes helping. She always helps. She told me she wanted to be useful today. Why euro? I almost answered too quickly, because that was the sort of sentence that could trap me. There was enough truth in it to make the lie look reasonable. I had picked up the bakery boxers at 9:15 that morning because the Florista Euro S van was already full. I had found safety pins for Data Euro S boutonniere. I had taped the loose corner of the welcome sign when the wind kept flipping it against the easel by the front steps. Those were real things I had done, but none of them were the same as being removed from my own Sistera Euro S table. Milo shifted the stack of banquet schedules under his arm. Why euro? As he did help. Why euro? He said, keeping his voice even. Why euro? Athada, euro S, not the issue. Why euro? Sophie gave him a tight smile, the kind she used at bridal showers when someone brought an offer-registry gift. Why I dona euro T? No, why you euro? Reacting like you know our family. Why euro? Why I know the seating chart I was handed. Why euro? Milo said. Carla turned one page in the folder and pulled out a sheet with blue highlighter across the top. Why euro? TSE is the final guest seating revision. Why euro? She said. Why euro are received by our office August 14th at 3:42 p.m. Mom reached for it, but Carla kept it on the podium. Why euro? May? Why euro? Dad asked, quieter than he euro D been all evening. Carla angled the paper so he could read without taking it. I saw the table numbers printed in small gray circles. Table 1 had Sophie and Grant. Table 2 had both sets of parents. Table 3 had grandparents and Aunt Celia. My name wasna euro T there. Carla tapped the lower margin. Y Euro Etheria Euro S. A handwritten note added beside vendor overflow BY Euro Aaron Wren, if needed. Y Euro Y Euro. Sophie lifted one hand, palm up. Y Euro Pebecca. She said she did na Euro tea care, where she sat. Y Euro. I heard myself laugh once, a dry, ugly sound, and stopped. Milo looked at me first, like he was asking permission without making a scene. I nodded, barely. He reached into the back pocket of his black vest and took out his phone. Why I dona Euro T. Usually keep personal texts with clients, but this was about seating and staffing. So I screenshotted it for the event file when the chart changed. Why Euro? Mom said. Why Euro Athada? Euro S. Inappropriate. Why Euro? Carla replied, I F it. Concerns our staffing plan. It belongs in our file. Why Euro? Milo scrolled, then set his phone flat on the podium. The screen showed a screenshot dated August 9th. My name was at the top, Aaron Wren. I remembered sending it from the bakery office during my break, with flour on my thumb and a line of customers waiting for lemon bars. Carla read it aloud only after glancing at me. Why Euro G Milo? Sorry to bother you. I just wanted to confirm IA Euro M seated with my family for dinner. My mom said the chart was still being adjusted, and IA Donati want to create confusion for service. Thank you, Aaron. Y Euro. Below, it was Maloa Euro's reply. Y Euro G Aaron. You are listed as family on our internal notes. IA Euro LL flag it before final print. Y Euro. Sophia Euro S mouth opened, then closed. I looked at her bouquet, which had been placed on the nearest cocktail table in a glass cylinder. One white rose had a brown crease along the outer petal. I fixed on that small flaw because if I looked at Sophia Euro's face too long, I was going to start explaining myself again. Milo swiped to the next screenshot. Y Euro log is 15, he said. Y Euro Pofter. The final chart came in. Carla read that one too. My message said, Y Euro P Milo. Sorry, my place card says vendor overflow on the draft my mom showed me. Is that a mistake? IA Euro M not staff for the reception. Y Euro. His reply was short. Y Euro Gia Euro LL, ask management. Please keep your copy. Y Euro. I had kept it. It was folded in the zipper pocket of my black clutch, next to my lipstick and the receipt from the gas station where IA Euro D bought mints on the drive over. Sophia Euro S voice softened, but it didn't a Euro T get kinder. Y Euro Garen, you could have told me you were upset instead of making it into this whole public thing. Y Euro, why? I didn't a Euro T make the invoice public. Y Euro, I said. My voice shook on Invoice, which annoyed me. Y Euro you Carla brought the file because mom asked me to put on an apron. Y Euro. Grant stood behind Sophie now, his tie loosened and his phone in his hand. He hadn't a Euro T spoken since the email chain was read, but his mother was watching from near the hallway, arms folded over her navy dress. Dad rubbed his forehead. Y Euro so Sophie. Did you know she asked to sit with us? Y Euro. Sophie looked at mom first. That was an answer before she said anything. Y Euro yeah I knew she was worried about it. Y Euro Sophie said. Y Euro you but mom said Aaron was being sensitive and that the tables were already packed. Y Euro Carla turned the seating revision toward Dad again. Y Euro table 3 has 9 seats. Our maximum for that table is 10. Y Euro. Dad stared at the empty circle beside Aunt Celia Euro's name. Mom snapped her purse shut. Y Euro T. This is exactly why I didn't a Euro T want Aaron involved in planning. Y Euro T. Why I was involved when the deposit was due. Y Euro. The sentence landed harder than I expected because it was plain. No decoration, no apology tucked inside it. From the ballroom, the DJ announced the cake cutting in a bright, practiced voice. Y Euro Yif. We can have the bride and groom make their way to the cake table. Y Euro. No one moved toward the cake. The DJ tried again, stretching his voice over the microphone like a rubber band. Y Euro UK table. Folks. Sophie and Grant, whenever you Euro re-ready. Grant was the first one to move, but he did not move toward the cake. He stepped to the side doors of the ballroom where his parents had been standing with champagne flutes and confused half-smiles. His mother, Mrs. Callahan, had a folded program in one hand. His father had one of the cream thank you cards from the welcome table tucked under his thumb. Diane saw them and straightened so fast the pearls at her neck clicked against each other. Y Euro Grant. Y Euro, she said, in that polished voice she used with florists and photographers. Y Euro jar guests are waiting. Y Euro. Grant looked at his dad. Y Euro you did you pay the Alder House deposit? Why euro? Mr. Callahan blinked once. Why euro? No. Why euro? It was not dramatic. He sounded like Grant had asked whether he had parked near the west entrance. Diana Euro's mouth tightened. Why I dona euro tea? Think this is the moment for accounting. Why euro? Mrs. Callahan lifted the thank you card. The front had Sophie and Granta S initials pressed in gold foil. Inside, in Sophia Euro's handwriting or something close to it, was a printed note thanking their parents for making the day possible. The last line read, "Special thanks to the Callahan family for their generous venue contribution." Mrs. Callahan tapped that line with a pale pink fingernail. Why euro UDN? Why euro? She said carefully. Why euro? Why is our name on this? Why euro? Sophie reached for the card, but Mrs. Callahan did not hand it over. Sophia Euro's fingers hung in the air for a second, then dropped to the skirt of her gown. Why euro pit was just wording. Why euro? Sophie said. Why euro like? General wedding wording. Why euro? Grant stared at her. Why euro? General wording with my parenza euro last name. Why euro? Carla had not moved from the service hallway. She still held the event folder against her ribs, but she flipped it open with her thumb and pulled out a second sheet. Milo stood a little behind her with his black banquet Captana Euro-S clipboard, watching the door like he was trying to keep servers from walking into a family argument with coffee pots. Mr. Callahan unfolded his reading glasses from his jacket pocket. Why Euro W paid for the rehearsal dinner at Calhouna Euro-S. We paid the shuttle balance last week. We did not pay a deposit here. Why euro? Data Euro-S face changed at the word shuttle. He looked at Diane, then at Sophie, then at me. I knew that look because I had seen it across kitchen counters my whole life. When a bill came due and nobody wanted to say whose name was on it, Diane gave a small laugh. Why euro Yita, Euro-S, very common to combine gifts for simplicity. Why euro no, why euro Mr. Callahan said. He slid the thank you card from under his thumb and held it in front of him. Why euro pit is common to thank people for what they actually gave. Why euro? Behind him, two bridesmaids had paused near the escort card table. One of them was still holding a slice of past focaccia on a cocktail napkin. The photographer lowered his camera and pretended to adjust the strap. Carla stepped forward just enough to be heard without raising her voice. Why euro? For clarity. Why euro? She said. Why euro? The older house receipt for the initial deposit lists Aaron Wren as the card holder. The amendment signed March 2nd lists Aaron Wren as the authorized payer for deposit allocation only. No Callahan payment was applied to that line. Why euro? Diane turned on Carla. Why euro? Jushadena euro TB discussing client details in public. Why euro? Carla nodded once. I agree. I asked twice to move this to my office. Why euro? That landed harder than shouting would have. Grant took the card from his mother and read the line himself. His bow tie sat crooked now, one side folded under. Why euro? Sophie. Did you know Aaron paid that? Why euro? Sophia Euro-S eyes flicked to me, then away to the cake table. The cake was white with pressed sugar petals, 3 tiers, exactly the design she had circled in a magazine and texted me at 11:18 p.m. in February. I had answered before bed telling her buttercream would hold better than whipped frosting under the lights. Why euro? AST wanted to help. Why euro? Sophie said. My face went hot, but my voice came out steady enough. Why I wanted to help pay the deposit. I did not ask to be thanked as the Gruma Euro-S family, and I did not ask to sit at vendor overflow. Why euro? Mrs. Callahan turned toward me then. Really, toward me? Why euro? Garen. Did anyone tell you our family was being credited for your payment? Why euro? Why euro? No. Why euro? I said. Dad rubbed both hands over his face. Why euro? UDN. Why euro? Diania. Euro's reply came fast. Why euro? W. We're trying to avoid awkwardness. Why euro? Mr. Callahan placed the thank you card on Carla Euro-S folder, right over the corner of the invoice. Why Eurothon? You printed it. Why euro? For the first time that night. Sophie did not look like a bride posing for photographs. She looked 24, tired, and cornered by paper she had approved. The DJ let the instrumental track fade awkwardly into the first notes of another song, then cut it off. From inside the ballroom, someone laughed too loudly, trying to cover the gap. Grant looked at the cake, then at me, then at his parents. Why euro? JOA? Euro re not cutting cake until this is corrected. Why euro? He said. Diane inhaled like she was about to argue, but Grant had already taken the thank you card back and started walking toward the welcome table. Diane caught up with Grant before he reached the welcome table. She did it in the narrow hallway between the ballroom and the coat room, where the carpet changed from patterned blue to plain gray tile. The welcome table was only 6 steps away, covered in cream linen, with the guest book, a brass card box, and 3 neat stacks of those thank you cards. "Why Euro Grant? Why Euro," she said, low and sharp. "Why Euro, please do not make a scene in front of everyone. Why Euro?" Grant stopped with one card pinched between his fingers. His boutonniere was crooked now, one white rose leaning toward his lapel pocket. "Why Euro?" Jar daughter was seated with the caterers after paying part of this bill. "Why Euro?" Diane glanced over her shoulder at the ballroom doors. "Why Euro?" Thea's wedding is being ruined over a misunderstanding. "Why Euro?" Carla stood near the service station with her clipboard against her chest. Milo had followed too, still holding the silver cake knife wrapped in a folded napkin. I stayed by the wall next to a framed fire evacuation map because my legs had started doing that weak buzzing thing they did when I had to argue in public. "Why? It wasna Euro ta a misunderstanding. Why Euro?" I said. My voice came out quieter than I wanted, but everyone heard it. Diana Euro's face turned toward me like she had been waiting for me to give her something she could manage. "Why Euro, Garen? Honey, why Euro?" she said, switching to the voice she used with neighbors. "Why Euro? Jew helped. Families help. We were going to thank you privately. Why Euro?" I looked at the welcome table. A corner of one card had slipped off the stack. In gold script, it said, "With love and gratitude to the Callahan family for their generous venue contribution." The same line, printed dozens of times, waiting for guests to pick up with their Jordan almonds. "Why Euro?" Jew told them it was from the Callahans. "Why Euro?" I said. Diane pressed her fingers together at her waist. "Why Euro, Pebecas?" It made sense for the program. It kept things simple. "Why Euro?" Beck said. "Why Euro? Simple for who?" "Why Euro?" Sophie appeared behind him, still holding her bouquet but with most of the ribbon dragging on the tile. Her makeup was perfect from 10 feet away. Up close, I could see where the setting powder had gathered near one eye. "Why Euro moom?" Just like Grant put them away. "Why Euro?" she said. Diana Euro's jaw tightened. "Why Euro?" Absolutely not. Guests already took some. Viffy starts collecting them. People will ask questions. "Why Euro? Why Euro?" Thesha. "Why Euro?" Grant said. "Why Euro? No. Why Euro?" Diane snapped, then caught herself and lowered her voice. "Why Euro? No. They should be eating cake. They should be talking about Sophia Euro's dress, the flowers, the music. I have worked for a year to make this beautiful, and now Erin is standing here with an invoice like she wants applause. Why Euro?" That one landed because part of me had been afraid of exactly that. I folded my hands around the tiny beaded purse I had bought on clearance, the one that barely fit my phone and lip gloss. "Why I didna, Euro T, want applause. Why Euro?" Diane looked almost relieved, like she had found the soft place in the floor. "Why Euro thun? Let it go. Why Euro?" I shook my head once. Why, I was scared to say anything because I thought everyone would think I was petty over money. I kept telling myself it was fine because the wedding mattered, and because I am good at fixing things quietly. Why Euro? Carla Euro's pen clicked against her clipboard. I kept going before I lost my nerve. Why I picked up extra shifts in February. I skipped replacing my car tires until April. I paid that deposit because you told me the venue date would be lost and Sophie would be devastated. Then tonight I found a place card with my name at the vendor meal table, and you told me to put on an apron. Why Euro? Sophie looked down at the bouquet ribbon. Diana Euro's face flushed along her cheekbones. Why? I was trying to solve a seating issue. Why Euro? Why Euro other? Was a family table. Why Euro? I said. Why? I saw the chart. Why Euro? Milo shifted beside Carla. Why Euro? Table 7 had to open chairs after the Fitzgerald cousins canceled. I updated the count at 4:15. Mrs. Wren was given the revised chart. Why Euro? Diane turned on him. Why Euro? Jew had no right to discuss guest seating. Why Euro? Why Euro? Gia Euro M, the banquet captain. Why Euro? Milo said. Why Euro? Juga seating is part of the banquet. Why Euro? Grant moved to the welcome table and lifted the entire stack of cards with both hands. Diane stepped forward, but Carla placed one hand lightly on the edge of the table. Why G, Mrs. Wren? Why, Carla said. Why Dodo not touch those until the couple decides what they want done? Why the couple? Why Euro? Diane said. Why I am the mother of the bride. Why Euro? Why Euro whined. The contract is with the couple and the listed payers. Why Euro? Carla said. Why Euro? The printed cards are not venue materials, but they are being distributed in our lobby. If they contain a disputed statement about payment, removing them is reasonable. Why euro? Sophie finally lifted her head. Why I approved the wording. Why euro? No one spoke for a second. From the ballroom came the squeak of a microphone being adjusted and a guest saying, "Is cake happening?" Why euro? Sophie looked at me, then at Grant. Why euro? Moon wrote it, but I saw the proof. I told myself it did not matter because Erin knew we appreciated her. Why euro? Why euro? Ju sat me with vendors. Why euro? I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. Grant set the cards inside the lower shelf of the welcome table, behind the guest book where no one would casually grab one. Then he looked at Sophie. Why euro? W need to tell people cake is delayed for 5 minutes. Why euro? He said. Why euro? Wand, you need to decide if your sister is a guest at this wedding. Why euro? Diane whispered. Why euro? Dodo not do this to me. Why euro? For once, Sophie did not answer her right away. She stared at the cream linen, at the hidden cards, at the brass box full of envelopes, and her fingers tightened around the bouquet stems until one white petal dropped onto the tile. Sophie lowered the bouquet to her side and said, very quietly, why euro? As he is my guest. Why euro? Diana Euro's mouth opened, but Carla was already moving. Why euro? Theon euro correcting the event file. Why euro? Carla said. She took the clipboard from Milo and walked toward the service office off the west hallway. I followed because my name was on those papers and because, by then, standing still felt worse than walking. The office was barely bigger than a pantry, with a gray printer, 2 metal filing cabinets, a wall calendar from a linen company, and a half-empty mug beside the keyboard. Through the cracked door, I could hear the DJ stretching for time. Why euro? Ladies and gentlemen, we euro LL have cake service in just a few minutes. Please enjoy coffee and the last song of this set. Why euro? Carla sat at the desk and opened the venue portal. Milo stood by the doorway, one hand on his radio. Diane came in behind me, still holding the hidden thank you cards against her ribs like she could press them back into existence. Carla clicked through tabs. Why euro? Pevent number AH6249. Ren Fitzgerald reception. Original deposit received February 3rd at 8:42 p.m. Card ending 6114. Name on card, Erin Wren. Diane said, why euro? You Carla. This is a family matter. Why euro? Why euro? No. Why euro? Carla said without raising her voice. Why euro? TS is an accounts matter. Why euro? The printer coughed awake. Carla selected a box on the screen. Then another. Diane stepped closer to the desk. Why euro? W had discussed a refund. You said after final reconciliation, adjustments could be made. Why? I said unused incidentals could be refunded to the paying party. Why euro? Carla said. Why euro? That is in the email I sent April 18th. I did not say a deposit paid by Erin Wren could be refunded to Diane Wren or to the Fitzgeralds. Why euro? She opened a message thread and turned the monitor slightly. I saw the subject line, deposit amendment and final balance. My own February email was there, short and embarrassing in its politeness. Hi Carla, IA euro M, covering the deposit for Sophie as a family contribution. Please keep it quiet for now. Thank you, Erin. Under it was Carla Euro's reply. Then the signed amendment with my name, my address, and the little digital signature I had drawn with my finger on my phone while sitting in the bakery break room. Diane looked at the screen and swallowed. Why euro? Garen intended it as a gift. Why euro? Garen intended it as a gift. Why euro? Why? I did. Why euro? I said. My voice came out rougher than I wanted. Why euro? You toast Sophie. For the venue. I didn't a euro tea gift you permission to tell people someone else paid it. Why euro? Carla printed the corrected invoice. The paper slid out warm, 2 pages, with a faint blue Alderhouse logo at the top. She took a black pen from the mug and circled the payment line. Why euro? E-deposit credited to Erin Wren. Why euro? She said. Why euro? Remaining balance due by the named contracting party before close of event. Why euro? She turned to Sophie. Why euro? The contract is under Sophie, Ren Fitzgerald, and Mark Fitzgerald. The final balance is not Arena's responsibility. Why euro? Sophie blinked. Why euro? On it. Why euro? Why euro? A tonite. Why euro? Carla said. Why euro? Per your agreement. Final bar extension, chair upgrade, and vendor overtime are due before the end of the reception. The balance is $4,860. Why euro? Diane snapped. Why euro? That the Fitzgeralds are handling that. Why euro? That in the hallway. Marka, Euro's father, appeared with a rocks glass in his hand and a confused crease between his eyebrows. Why euro? Wandling. What? Why euro? Nobody answered him fast enough. Carla handed Sophie the invoice. YG, Mrs. Fitzgerald, I can take a card at the front desk. I can split payment between cards if needed. What I cannot do is process a refund to someone who did not pay and then pretend the file matches. Why euro? Diana Euro's cheeks had gone blotchy around her makeup. Why euro? Teeth is humiliating. Why euro? Carla capped the pen. Why euro? The file is accurate. Why euro? I looked at the second page of the invoice. There were the details I had only half understood months ago. Garden, room deposit, ballroom minimum, ceremony chairs, desert station service. Every line had a date. Every charge had a place to land. For once, nothing was floating around as a favor somebody could rename. Milo Euro's radio clicked. Why? Euro you cake ready at the kitchen doors. Why? Euro Carla stood. Why? Euro good. Milo, hold cake service until Mrs. Fitzgerald decides how she wants to address the seating correction. Why? Euro. Sophie stared at the invoice in her hand. Her thumb rubbed over my circled name until the toner smudged slightly. Then Mark stepped into the office doorway. His tie was loose and his smile was gone. Why euro, Seth? Why euro? He said, looking from her to Diane to the invoice. Why euro? Why does that say Aaron paid the deposit? Why euro? Diane said. Why euro, marmed. This is not the moment. Why euro? Sophie did not look at her. She looked at me. Why I need a minute. Why euro, she said. Carla checked the clock on the wall. It was 8:37. Why euro do you have to? Why euro, Carla said. Why euro, Pofter? That I either restart service with corrected records or I stop the bar until payment is settled. Why euro, outside the office. The guests laughed at something the DJ said. Plates clinked and someone called for more coffee. Inside, Sophie held the invoice like it weighed more than her bouquet. Sophie did not answer Mark right away. She folded the invoice in half, then unfolded it, leaving a crease through my name. Mark rubbed both hands over his face and looked at Diane. Why euro uded? You tell my parents they paid the deposit. Why euro? Diane reached for the little silver clutch on Carla Euro's desk as if her lipstick could get her out of it. Why euro tease is not the place. Why euro tease is not the place when the bar almost shut down during my wedding. Why euro, he said. Carla checked the clock on her wall. 8:39. Mark took out his phone and opened his banking app. Why euro you hut? Is the exact balance. Why euro offer 1,860. Why euro, Carla said. Why euro Gia, euro LL. Print a receipt at the front desk. It will show as final event payment, not deposit. Diane snapped. Why euro, marmed? You donna euro T have to do that. Your father can speak to her. Why euro? Why euro Udad is doing the anniversary toast in 9 minutes? Why euro, Mark said, not looking at her. Why euro Gia euro M paying the bill. Why euro Sophia euro's eyes stayed on the carpet. She held the invoice against her dress, careful not to wrinkle the bodice. That carefulness bothered me more than if she had yelled she could protect satin from a paper edge. But she had let me sit beside a stack of linen bags with a place card written like an afterthought. Carla stepped into the hall with Mark, and Milo followed with the clipboard. I went after them because I still had the black apron folded over my arm. The banquet hallway smelled like coffee, gravy, and the lemon cleaner they used near the restrooms. At the service station, 2 servers were refilling water pitchers and pretending not to listen. Milo stopped by a rolling rack of clean champagne flutes. Why euro Judona euro T have to wear that? Why euro? Why I know. Why euro, I said. My voice came out flat. Why I want it out of my hands. Why euro? We passed the ballroom doors just as the DJ said. Why euro? Paul right. Folks, we going to make one small adjustment and then continue with toasts. Why euro? Inside, chairs scraped. Carla had already signaled her staff. A young server named Priya lifted my handwritten place card from the vendor table with 2 fingers, like it had food on it. Another server removed the spare setting beside the photograph Rioro's camera bag. Alder House staff did not make a scene. They moved like they were resetting a dining room after a storm. Quiet and exact. 1 chair was added to table 2, where my parents, Sophie, Mark, and Marka, Euro's parents, were seated. A clean ivory place card appeared in front of the empty setting. It had been printed from the front desk label maker Aaron Wren in plain black letters. Diane saw it from the office doorway. Why euro? Absolutely not. Why euro? She said under her breath. Carla heard her. Why euro? The contracted family table has capacity for 10. You listed 9. We are correcting a seating error. Y euro. Y a seating error. Y euro Diane repeated, bitter and low. I wanted to say it had been handwriting, ink, and intent. I did not. I walked to the side counter where extra napkins were stacked, placed the folded apron on top, and smoothed it once with my palm. Milo picked it up and set it behind the service clipboard. Y euro returned at 8:43. Y euro, he said quietly, making a note. That tiny note nearly undid me. A person had recorded the moment I stopped being borrowed labor. When I entered the ballroom, I kept my eyes on the carpet runner between the tables. Forks paused, conversation thinned, then restarted in little patches. Aunt Linda looked at the new place card, then at me, and pushed her purse off the chair beside her so I could pass. At table 2, Mark stood when I arrived. His father looked confused, his mother looked embarrassed, and my father stared into his water glass. Sophie did not look up. I sat between my father and Marka Euro's mother. The chair was still cold from storage. A server set a salad plate in front of me, even though everyone else was already on short rib. Priya leaned close and whispered, Y euro you cucina euro s, making you a hot plate. 2 minutes. Y euro, I said. The DJ handed the microphone to Marka S. father, who adjusted his glasses and gave a toast about families joining, about generosity, about how proud they were to welcome Sophie. His voice caught once, probably for reasons that had nothing to do with me. People clapped politely. Then Diane took the microphone. She had fixed her lipstick. She smiled at the tables like she was posing for the photographer. Why, I just want to thank everyone who helped make this beautiful evening possible. Y euro, she said. Y euro weddings are complicated, and sometimes details get messy. Y euro. Marka Euro's hand tightened around his water glass. Diane continued. Y euro you what matters is that Sophie and Mark are surrounded by love. Y euro. She did not say my name. She did not say deposit. She did not say sorry. Sophie looked at the centerpiece, at her champagne flute, at the lace on her sleeve, anywhere except at me. When the applause came, it was uneven. Carla stood near the ballroom entrance with the receipt folder tucked under her arm, watching the room the way managers watch candles near curtains. I touched the edge of my new place card, slid it half an inch straighter, and waited for my dinner to arrive. The salad came on a square white plate with a smear of beet dressing I had seen on the tasting menu back in March. I remembered Sophie wrinkling her nose at it and Diane saying, Y euro pit photographs. Well, Y euro as if lettuce had a public relations job. Mark sat to my right, still checking his phone under the table. His banking app had sent him the confirmation email at 8:51 p.m., and he showed it to me without making a big announcement. The subject line said Alder House payment received, and the amount was right there, $4,860. Y euro Gia euro M. Sorry it came to that. Y euro, he said quietly. I nodded, because I did not trust myself to answer without sounding either too grateful or too tired. Across the table, Aunt Marcy leaned toward my father. Y euro, so the groom a euro's parents covered the venue. Didn't a euro tea they... Diane said they insisted. Y euro. Dad looked down at his fork. He had been cutting the same cherry tomato into smaller pieces for almost a full minute. Y euro no. Y euro, he said. It was the first clean word I had heard from him all night. Aunt Marcy blinked. Y euro, no. Y euro. He put the fork down and wiped his mouth with the corner of his napkin. Y euro Garen paid the deposit. Mark just paid the balance. Y euro. The sentence did not travel across the whole ballroom. It only landed at our table, on the bread plates and water glasses and the folded programs with Sophie and Rihanna S initials stamped in gold. Still, Diane heard enough from the next table over. I saw her shoulders tighten before she turned around. Y euro, Paul. Y euro, she said, in that smiling voice people use when they are furious in photographs. Dad did not look at her. Y euro Gia euro M, answering a question. Y euro, Aunt. Marcy turned to me, then to the place card in front of me, the one Carla had printed. Y euro Garen. Honey, is that true? Y euro. I picked up my water glass, then set it down again. The rim had a tiny chip in the glaze. Y euro Jize. Y euro. There was more I could have said. I could have named the $5,000 deposit, the refund email chain, the signed amendment with my name beside Carla euro S, the card receipt from February 3rd at 10:14 a.m. I could have told Aunt Marcy how Diane moved me to the vendor table with a handwritten card, then asked me to put on an apron so nobody would ask why I was not seated with family. Instead, I said, Y euro you Carla has the paperwork. Y euro. Aunt Marcy looked toward the entrance, where Carla was speaking to a server with a clipboard. Milo stood beside them, holding a stack of dessert tickets clipped together with a black binder clip. The room was still running. Plates were being cleared, coffee cups were being set down. The wedding machine did not stop just because one lie had lost its wheels. Diane came over before the main course. She did not bend down. She stood behind Dada Euro's chair with one hand on the back of it and one hand wrapped around her champagne flute. Why Euro Garen? Why Euro, she said. Why Euro Theist is not the time to make family matters public. Why Euro? I looked at her hand on the chair. Her nails were pale pink, the exact shade she had made Sophie choose for the bridal party because it was why Euro classy in close-ups. Why Euro? Why I didn't a Euro T make the seating chart public? Why Euro? I said. Why I sat where you put me. Why Euro? Mark shifted beside me, but he did not interrupt. Diana Euro's mouth tightened. Why Euro? You know I was trying to prevent awkward questions. Why Euro? Why Euro? You created the questions. Why Euro? I said. My voice came out lower than I expected. Why Euro? Youth. A place card and an apron. Why Euro? Dad pushed his chair back an inch. Aunt Marcy stared at her program as if the ceremony order might explain all of us. Sophie stood near the sweetheart table, watching. Ryan was beside her, speaking to one of his cousins. Sophie held her bouquet low against her dress, the ribbon ends brushing the floor. She did not come over. She did not wave me away either. She just watched Diane handle it, the way she had let Diane handle everything that made her uncomfortable. Diane leaned closer. Why Euro? Jew offered to help. Why Euro? Why I offered money when you said the venue deposit was due. Why Euro? I said. Why I offered because you told me the date would be lost. Why Euro? Why Euro? That was still your choice. Why Euro? Why Euro? Jize. Why Euro? I said. Why Euro? Wand. After tonight, I understand what my choice bought. Why Euro? Her eyes flicked to Aunt Marcy, then to Mark, then to my father. She was checking damage, not listening. So I am going to ask you what I wish someone had asked me months earlier. Before the bank portal, before the invoice folder, before my name was erased from a table I helped pay for. If you give a favor to family, and they use that favor to make you invisible, is it still a gift? Or has it become payment for your own humiliation? Because at 9:03 p.m., with the chicken entra e arriving and my mother standing behind my Federa Euro S chair, I finally knew my answer. 3 weeks after that dinner, I was opening the bakery at 5:42 a.m., cutting parchment circles for the 6-inch pans, when my phone buzzed beside the scale. It was an email from Harbor Mutual Bank with the subject line, Why Euro? You action needed. Merchant response received. Why Euro? I stood between the flour bins and the proofing rack, still wearing one glove, and read the first line twice. Why Euro? W have received documentation from the Alder House regarding your dispute of the $5,000 charge dated February 3rd. I had not disputed anything. The mixer was thumping dough against the bowl behind me, and my assistant, Tessa, was asking if the almond extract was in the office or the dry shelf. I told her, Why Euro? Goffus. Why Euro? Then walked into the little back room and shut the door with my hip. The bank portal showed a case number, HM44819, opened September 6th at 11:18 a.m. The merchant documents were attached as one PDF. Carla's name was on the first page. Statement from Carla Baines, venue manager, the Alder House. Below that were the same documents I had kept in my folder, only cleaner. The invoice. The receipt with my card ending in 6024. The signed deposit amendment with my name printed under Y Euro Payer. Y Euro the refund email chain, where Diane had written, Y Euro, please do not list Aaron on any guest-facing paperwork. Y Euro. Carla had added a final paragraph. YG Ms. Aaron Wren made the initial deposit voluntarily and in person on February 3. I witnessed the payment being processed at the front desk. Mr. Milo Hayes was also present in the office area at the time. No refund is due from the Alder House because the deposit was applied to the contracted event held on June 22nd. I sat on the metal chair by the mop sink and called Harbor Mutual before I called anyone in my family. The representative Euro's name was Janet. She asked me to confirm my mailing address, my last 4 digits, and whether I had authorized the dispute. Why Euro? No. Why Euro? I said. Why I authorized the original charge. I did not authorize this dispute. Why Euro? There was typing. Then Janet said, carefully, Why Euro Gia Euro LL. Mark the dispute as customer error and close the case. I do recommend replacing the card if anyone else may have access to your information. Why Euro? I looked at the bulletin board over my desk, at the bakery schedule clipped under a magnet shaped like a croissant. I had written Sophia Euro's bridal shower cake pickup on that same calendar months earlier in purple pen. Why Euro, please replace it. Why Euro, I said. By noon, Diane had left 3 voicemails. The first came at 8:07. Why Euro, Garen, call me. There Euro's been a misunderstanding with the venue billing, and you are making it sound worse by refusing to cooperate. Why Euro? The second came at 9:23. Why Euro Judona, Euro T. Understand how these systems work. I was trying to get Everyonia's money in the right place after you made such a spectacle at Marcia. Euro S. Why Euro? The third came while I was boxing lemon bars for a school fundraiser. Why Euro Jew need to stop acting like this was some crime. I am your mother. I was trying to fix the embarrassment you created. Why Euro? I saved all 3. I did not answer. That evening, Sophie posted her wedding album. I saw it because Aunt Marcy texted me one sentence at 7:16 p.m. Uday, do you approve these? Why Euro? The link opened to a gallery called Why Euro Sophie and Caleb, the Alder House. Why Euro 412 photos. Sophie under the pergola. Diane adjusting Sophia Euro's veil. My father shaking Kaliba Euro's hand. Marka Euro's parents at the head table. The cake I had helped choose, lit from the side so the sugar flowers looked expensive. I scrolled through the family portraits. There was one with my parents and Sophie, one with my parents, Sophie, Caleb, and Marka, Euro's parents, one with Aunt Marcy, one with cousins I had not seen since I was 14. There was no photo with me in it. I found myself in the edge of one reception shot, half behind a server carrying coffee. My blue dress was visible from the shoulder down. My face was blocked by a water pitcher. At 7:44, Sophie texted me, why Euro, please Donna, Euro T, start anything about the photos. The photographer had a tight list. Why Euro? I typed, why Euro Puo, made the list. Why Euro? She did not answer for 9 minutes. Then she wrote, why Euro, Moom handled family groupings. I was busy getting married. Why Euro? I put the phone on my kitchen counter and opened the freezer. I had 3 containers of soup, a bag of peas, and the top tier of the sample cake I had baked when Sophie was deciding between almond and vanilla bean. I took out the cake, still wrapped in plastic, and set it in the trash without unwrapping it. The next morning, Carla forwarded me the closed bank response. Her email was short. Why Euro Garen, Harbor Mutual confirmed the dispute is withdrawn. For your records, attached is my final statement and the transaction packet. I am sorry you were put in this position at an event hosted in our building. Why Euro? I printed it at the bakery office printer because my apartment printer only worked when it felt generous. The pages came out warm, one by one. Invoice, receipt, amendment, email chain, Carla, Euro S statement. I slid them into a manila envelope and wrote on the front in black marker. Alder House deposit, final record. Then I put the envelope in the bottom drawer of my desk, under the payroll binder, where nobody in my family had a reason to look. The text from Sophie came the next Tuesday at 7:18 in the morning, while I was unlocking the Bakery Euro's back door with a box of lemons balanced against my hip. It was raining hard enough that the alley behind Finch and Flowers smelled like wet cardboard and coffee grounds. I had my phone tucked in the front pocket of my hoodie, and it buzzed twice while I was trying to get the key to turn. Sophia Euro's name on the screen made me pause longer than I wanted to admit. The message was cut off in the preview. Can you please stop sending Mom into spirals about the deposit? I stood under the metal awning by the delivery door and opened it. The full text said, can you please stop sending Mom into spirals about the deposit? She told everyone. Marka Euro's parents helped, because she didn't a Euro T want people thinking we couldn't a Euro T afford a normal wedding. You got your big moment at the reception already. I a Euro M trying to settle into married life, and I can't a Euro T keep dealing with this. There was no sorry in it. No. I knew that was your money. No. I should have said something when you were seated by the caterers. No. I should not have let Mom hand you an apron. Just that one line. Clear as a label on a cake box. She told everyone Marka Euro's parents helped. I read it 3 times. With rain ticking against the awning and the Baker Euro's walk-in compressor humming through the brick wall. Then I took a screenshot before she could delete it. I had learned that from watching Diane revise stories in real time. If a sentence helped her, it stayed. If it helped me, it disappeared. Inside, I set the lemons on the prep table and washed my hands. My assistant manager brain took over because it always did when I was rattled. Clock in, tie apron, check the special orders, pull the croissant dough from the retarder, write the morning list on the clipboard. At 7:41, Sophie sent another text. I didna, Euro T, mean it like that. Donna Euro T screenshot me. I stared at the phone beside the scale, dusted with flour at the edge. She had not asked if I had taken a screenshot. She assumed I had, which meant she knew exactly what the first message contained. I wiped my thumb on a towel and typed IA Euro M, not discussing this during work. Then I added, please Donna T contact me about the deposit unless Ida Euro S in writing. I deleted that second line twice before I sent it. Milo came in at 8:05 for his standing coffee order, black drip and a Hamanchador croissant, because the Alderhouse staff meeting was on Tuesdays, and he said Carla liked to start early. He noticed my face before I said anything. Why Euro Ubed order? Why Euro? He asked, nodding toward the ticket rail. Why Euro Ubed text? Why Euro? I said. He held both hands up a little. Why Euro Judona Euro T? Have to tell me, why Euro? I surprised myself by turning the phone around and showing him. He read it without touching the screen. His mouth tightened at the corner. Why Euro Athata? Euro S useful. Why Euro? Why Euro Athata? Euro S what I thought. Why Euro I said. And then hated how cold it sounded. Why Euro? No. Why Euro? He said quietly. Why Euro useful? Does Anna Euro T mean you wanted it? Why Euro? I put the phone face down next to the register and rang up his coffee. He paid with a 5, dropped the change into the tip jar, and said, why Euro mail it to yourself? Today, screenshots get lost. Why Euro? So at 8:22, between glazing lemon scones and boxing a birthday cake with blue piping, I sent the screenshot to my own email. Subject line, Sophie text 7 to 18. I added the date, her number, and the exact wording in the body. Because if I was going to keep records, I was going to keep them like invoices, not like diary pages. At lunch, I printed it in the bakery office. The printer left a faint gray streak down the right side, and the timestamp at the top showed 7:18 a.m. I folded the page once and put it in my backpack, inside the zipped pocket where I kept my spare hair ties and bank card. After closing, I drove home through wet streets and parked outside my apartment at 6:13. I did not go upstairs right away. I sat in the Dravera Euros seat with the printed text on my lap and the wipers still clicking, even though the rain had softened to mist. Sophie had given me the thing Diane kept trying to blur. Not an apology, not kindness. A sentence she sent because she was annoyed and tired and confident I would absorb it the way I always had. I took the manila envelope from the bottom drawer when I got upstairs. Alderhouse deposit, final record was still written across the front in my thick black marker. I slid Sophia Euro S printed text behind Carla Euro S statement. Then I wrote one more line on the outside of the envelope, smaller this time. Sophie knew. The week after the wedding, I took the envelope out of my work tote and put it in a plastic file box from Target. It had a blue latch and a crack in one corner because I bought the cheaper one from the clearance shelf. I set it on the floor of my bedroom beside 2 Banker Euro S boxers labeled kitchen and books. On Tuesday at 11:40 a.m., during my lunch break at the bakery, I opened the bank portal on my phone and looked at my savings account. For months, that number had been a holding place for other POPLS emergencies. A dress alteration Diane forgot to budget for. A florist balanced Sophie called temporary. A Y Euro just until Fredea Euro transfer when my Data S card got declined at the tire shop. I had $3,860.22. I stared at the cents for longer than I needed to, then logged into the tenant portal for Juniper Court Apartments, Unit to see, 1 bedroom, 612 square feet, 2nd floor, coin laundry in the basement. The leasing agent, Rena Copyright E, had emailed me the Maven ledger that morning. Application fee, paid. Security deposit, $1,200. First month Euro S rent, $1,145. Pet fee not applicable. Keys and mail fob, $75. Total due at signing, $2,420. I had toured the place 2 weeks before the wedding, back when I was still telling myself I might wait until after the holidays. The kitchen had yellowed linoleum and one drawer that stuck unless you lifted it first. The living room window faced a maple tree and the sidewall of a Dentesta Euro S office. It was not impressive, which made me trust it more. I clicked pay now before I could talk myself into being available for someone else. The confirmation page loaded at 11:43 a.m. Payment submitted, $2,420. Confirmation number JC2C441 I took a screenshot, emailed it to myself, and then, out of habit, printed it from the tiny office printer behind the bakery counter after my shift ended. The page came out with a streak through the barcode because the toner was low. I folded it anyway and put it in a new folder labeled apartment. Mine. At 6:12 p.m., Diane called. I let it ring while I stood in the bakery parking lot with my apron in one hand and my keys in the other. A voicemail appeared before I reached my car. Why Euro Garen? Call me when you get this. Why Euro, she said. Her voice sounded careful, the way it did when she wanted to sound injured instead of angry. Why Eurojar, father and I are trying to figure out the brunch bill from Sunday. There are still some family obligations after a wedding, whether you agree with how things were handled or not. Why Euro? I played it twice, then saved it. At 6:19, she texted, can you send 600 tonight? IA Euro LL explain later. Please Donna Euro T make this difficult. I sat in my car and watched a man in a baseball cap carry a sheet cake to the trunk of a silver Subaru. The bakery windows were still fogged from the ovens. My phone lit up again. We are your family, Aaron. I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. The first one was too long. The second one sounded like I was asking permission. The third one included the words, why Euro Pofter what you did? Why Euro? And I knew she would use that as the start of a different argument. At 6:27, I wrote, IA Euro M, not paying any wedding bills or family image expenses. I have my own housing costs now. Diane replied almost immediately, housing costs. Since when? I looked at the lease packet on the passenger seat. Rena Copyright E had left yellow flags where I needed to sign. Initials on page 2, signature on page 5, emergency contact on page 7. I had already decided to leave that line blank until I could ask my friend Talia. Since today, I wrote, 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, so you had money and let us sit with unpaid bills. I pressed my thumb against the side of the phone until the screen dimmed. I had money for my apartment deposit, I wrote. IA Euro M, not available as the backup fund anymore. She did not answer for 9 minutes. When she did, it was a photo of the brunch invoice. I could see a white tablecloth beneath it and my mother a Euro S left thumbnail painted pale pink at the edge of the paper. The balance was $587.64. Due upon receipt. She had circled the total in blue pen. I saved the image. Then I put my phone face down in the cup holder and drove to Juniper Court. Rena Copyright E met me in the leasing office at 6:58 with a clipboard and a ring of sample keys. The office smelled like lemon cleaner and printer paper. A fake fern leaned against the window. Why Euro Jua Euro Re Aaron? Why Euro, she asked. Why Euro JS? Sorry, IEA Euro M coming straight from work. Why Euro, no problem. I saw the deposit come through. Why Euro? She tapped the ledger with one acrylic nail. Why Euro Jua Euro Re, all set once. These are signed. Why Euro? I signed every yellow flag. My hand shook a little on the first page, so my E came out too tall. By page 5, it looked normal again. On page 7, I paused at emergency contact. I wrote Talia Nguyen and her phone number. I had known Talia since community college accounting class. She had once driven across town at midnight because my car battery died outside a pharmacy. She had never asked me to lie about who paid for anything. Rena Copyright E tore off my copies and slid them into a white envelope with Juniper Court printed in green at the top. Why Euro Omovin is Friday after 3. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro bring a photo ID. If the basement door sticks, lift the handle before you pull. Why Euro? I laughed because I liked that the first advice anyone gave me about my new place was practical and honest. When I got back to my car, Sophia texted, Mom says you Euro repunishing everyone. Can you just help with this last thing? So Ita Euro S over. I looked through the windshield at the apartment building. Unit to C had a dark window above the side entrance. In 3 days, that window would have my lamp in it, my mug in the cabinet, my towels on the bathroom shelf. I wrote back, I already helped with the last thing. It was called the deposit. Then I turned off my phone for the drive home. I did not turn my phone back on until I was parked behind Butterline Bakery at 5:42 the next morning. The loading door was still locked, so I stood under the yellow security light with my tote bag against my hip and watched 37 missed texts stack onto the screen. Most were from Mom. You embarrassed your sister. Carla had no right to say that in front of people. You made a private family matter public. Then, at 1:16 a.m., one line finally said what she had been circling all night. If you had wanted credit, you should have said so before the wedding. I took a screenshot before the bakery Wi-Fi could drop. Then I opened Data S messages. He had written only once. Your mother is upset. Please Donna, Euro T, make this harder. I put the phone in my apron pocket and unlocked the bakery with my manager key. Flour bins, cooling racks, the pastry case, the same metal clipboard hanging by the office door. There was comfort in things with labels. Almond flour, cake boxes, paid invoices, deliveries due by noon. At 7:10, while I was printing the special order sheet, Sophie called. I let it ring once, then answered because I wanted to hear her voice without a banquet hall around it. She did not say hello. Why euro Udid? You really keep copies of everything. Why euro Ud? I leaned against the prep table next to a tray of lemon bars cooling in neat rows. Why euro Jais? Why euro? Why euro? Why euro? Why euro? Why euro? Papa, because I paid a venue deposit with money I earned, and then I was handed a place card at the vendor table. Why euro? She breathed into the phone. In the background, I heard a hotel door click and someone rolling a suitcase across tile. Why euro people are asking questions. Why euro, she said. Why euro Uthi should ask mom. Why euro? Why euro Uthia euro? Re-asking me why euro. I looked at the office printer spitting out an invoice for a retirement cake with extra raspberry filling. Why euro Tethan? Answer them. Why euro? She went quiet for a few seconds. Why I didna euro T make the seating chart? Why euro? Why euro? No. Why euro? I said. Why euro Jiba? You saw it. Why euro? That was the sentence I had avoided saying at the Alder house because saying it meant I could not fold myself back into being useful again. Sophie had seen the chart. She had seen the little card with my name in blue ink beside the vendor meals. She had watched mom tell me to put on a spare apron. She had chosen the easiest version of the day for herself. Why I just wanted the wedding to go smoothly. Why euro, she said. Why euro? Yeah, I know. Why euro? That was true, and it still did not fix anything. After work, I drove to Juniper Court with 2 boxers in my back seat and my lease folder on the passenger side. At 6:03 p.m., I carried my first box into Unit to see. It had 4 mugs, a kettle, 2 towels, and the envelope from the Alder house. I put the envelope in the top drawer of my kitchen counter, beside the apartment inspection checklist and my spare key. Mom came by 9 days later. She did not come upstairs. She texted from the parking lot, IA Euro M here. We should talk. I stood at my window and saw her silver SUV idling near the visitor spaces. I typed back, you can email me. She called immediately. I did not answer, so she emailed. The subject line was, family. She wrote that I had misunderstood her intentions, that weddings were stressful, that she had been trying to avoid gossip. There was no apology in the first 5 paragraphs. In the 6th, she wrote, IA Euro, M sorry, you felt placed in an awkward position. I replied with 3 sentences. I will not pay for family events where I am treated as hired help. I will not hide my contribution so someone else can look generous. If you want a relationship with me, it has to start with the truth. Then I attached 1 PDF, the signed deposit amendment with my name on it. I did not send the receipt, the refund email chain, or the photograph of the place card. I kept those. I had learned the difference between proving a point and protecting a record. A month later, I skipped Sunday brunch at my Parenza Euro house and spent that morning building a small shelf in my living room. I messed up 1 bracket and had to patch 2 screw holes with spackle. But by noon, my cookbooks were standing upright. My phone stayed face down on the counter. No emergency arrived because I was not there to smooth it over. I still work at the bakery. I still check invoices twice. I still get embarrassed when conflict starts near me. But now, when someone calls my help a gift and then tries to erase my name from it, I ask for the document. If there is no document, I ask for the truth. If there is no truth, I leave. That wedding taught me 1 clean boundary. I can bring the cake. I can pay the deposit. I can organize the rides, the favors, the hotel blocks, the last-minute ribbon from aisle 7. But I will not sit with the caterers while my family tells the room someone else paid. That is the end of my story. If you were holding that invoice at your Sistera Euro S wedding, would you have stayed for the cake or walked out with the proof in your hand? Tell me in the comments, because I still wonder what other people would have done at that table. Subscribe if you want more stories about family, money, and the receipts people hope you never keep. And check the description for the list of proof objects I mentioned.